Mario 64 will forever be one of the most impactful games, as not only did it solidify the Mario series as arguably the most iconic gaming franchise, but it also introduced the world to the Sandbox level structure that some of the greatest games of all time still use to this day. It's a format that for many of us has created unforgettable experiences, as the freedom and creativity that's jammed into these tiny levels achieves something that most games these days have forgot about. Just pure fun. There's no mindless wandering searching for waypoints, no grinding to level up your player, no waiting around for more objectives. It's a format that's trimmed all the tedious elements of video games out, and it has a special place in my heart because of this. The 3D Mario series would later go back to its roots with games like Super Mario 3D Land and World, and whilst those games are still amazing, the linear nature of those levels have left them feeling quite unremarkable in the grand scheme of the Mario franchise. That's why I want to go over every Sandbox level in the Mario series to see what's the best of the best. And when I say every, I don't just mean these 3 games. I mean every Sandbox level, even from the games that otherwise would have pretty linear levels. But really quickly, let's establish the ground rules. My definition of Sandbox isn't really objective, but to give you a better understanding of what levels will count, Sprawling Savanna will count, but Bowser in the Sky won't. This level in its design just feels more like a platforming challenge, whereas Sprawling Savanna has a much heavier focus on exploration. I know realistically it has the same design principles as other linear levels, but my definition of Sandbox is a lot looser, so I can include a broad range of levels. Also, some hub worlds are counted. Peach's Castle and Delfino Plaza have a ton of collectibles and secrets within them, but hub worlds like the Comet Observatory and Starship Mario won't be counted for obvious reasons. I was considering Lake Lapcat as a permitted hub world, but I decided against it because the missions in this hub world just don't really feel like a cohesive world. However, I will be counting each individual region from Bowser's Fury. This leaves us with a total of 12 unique locations. The kingdoms from Mario Odyssey are really big in comparison to a lot of the other levels, and if I were to consider all the sub areas, in addition to the overworld, almost every kingdom would be extremely high up. So to make it more fair, the overworld is the main focus when ranking these levels, and the sub-areas will have little impact, if any, on my ranking. In saying that, there are some sub-areas that will count. These are any sub-areas that are unlocked through getting the regional outfit, sub-areas that lead to minigames, or are a core part of the main progression in the level. The last rule is something I had to implement after writing a bit of the script, as I realized a lot of these levels have pretty linear sections within them, especially the 3D Land and World games. I've decided that I will only include the linear section as a part of the level if it is the direct result of exploration. So for Sprawling Savanna, there's a lot of linear sections before and after the open area, but these are not a result of exploring the open area. In contrast is Beach Bowl Galaxy, which has a linear section that comes from exploring the main area. I know there's a lot of grey area with these rules, but you'll get a greater picture of what's included as the video goes on. Last thing I want to mention is that I've recruited a bunch of my favourite YouTubers who I reasonably thought I could message to talk about some levels as they come up. A lot of these channels are smaller, and if you like what you see, I'd encourage you to go check their channels out in the description. I also want to shout out schaffrillis Productions, as I got this idea from his Mario Kart 8 ranking, so definitely watch that video as well, after this one of course. Now with that all out of the way, let's see what the worst Sandbox level in the series is. This is the one and only level that I would consider worthless within this video, and that's a testament to how good the rest of the 3D Mario series is. But ultimately, it makes sense that the worst level is a water level. I feel as if this game's swimming mechanics are passable nowadays, and I'm sure it was revolutionary back then. But when you have to perform so many precise tasks in this level, it reveals how clunky the swimming actually is. Opening the chests in the right order is already pretty tedious, but when you throw in the clunky swimming, limited oxygen, and deadly whirlpool, getting this star becomes a nightmare. But what really sets this course up for failure is the tunnel. There is absolutely no reason for this to be so long and boring. Additionally, most of the level stars are on the other side, so for a majority of the stars, you have to get through approximately 40 seconds of mindless swimming. Then when you get there, you're treated with some of the most monotonous objectives. Collecting the red coins is just a drawn out waiting game where most of the challenge comes from the janky physics of the game, and the camera does not help with this at all. A lot of people insist the camera makes this game unplayable, and I'm definitely not one of those people. I think the camera is fine for the most part, but I can understand for people who aren't used to old video game cameras. But with this section, it can be really difficult to properly line up Mario to jump on the poles. This level is a prime example for one of my biggest gripes with this game, and that's the abilities. I think the different caps were a neat idea, and in a lot of cases they contribute to the experimentation that this game encourages, but in this case, they are just here to pad out the level. There is no challenge in getting these stars. You pass through the rings to unlock a star, then you're restricted from collecting it unless you've unlocked the medal cap, which is reasonable to believe a lot of people wouldn't have it by this point. Then another star does the same thing, but you need both the invisible cap and the medal cap. And after getting both of these, you simply just walk to the star. I hate these types of stars that involve no sort of challenge to them and only really act as a barrier to most players. I think these stars would work a lot more if it led to some sort of challenge that effectively utilizes these caps. Because the secret of unlocking these should be a moment where you're excited about the potential they unlock, but rather it feels like a chore to go back and complete these missions, especially when you have to go through 40 seconds of mindless swimming twice, just to do absolutely nothing. And don't even get me started on the frickin' hole. I feel like this level was just a collection of the most evil ideas, and this one takes the cake. Rainbow Ride is one of the most frustrating levels ever. Mario 64 was not designed for levels like this, and you could use the phrase "get good," which is fair. I'm not amazing at this game, but a challenging level shouldn't encourage persistence through unjust punishment. Like multiple times through this recording, I just wanted to give up on this level. Like when my double jump just doesn't work within the 2 seconds I'm supposed to do it, or how I'm just supposed to know that getting off the carpet for too long makes it disappear. The controls of Mario 64 can lead to some very impressive gameplay, but most of us aren't speedrunners, so we are kinda bad when it comes to precise movements, and most of the game's levels are well aware of this. Nintendo knew the jump to 3D would be very intimidating for most people, and that's mostly why these levels are designed with this sandbox philosophy in mind. But I guess Nintendo assumed because this is a later level that this philosophy could be thrown out the window. Resultantly, there are so many challenges within this level that come off as unfair rather than challenging. The missions where you have to ride the carpet for what seems like years tend to be the most frustrating missions in the game. If you're not posed with difficult, awkward obstacles, then you're posed with nothing, except for the music, which just contributes to this level's theme of losing your mind. These sections both feel too slow and too fast at times, and that's because this carpet does move really slowly, but it's also really tiny. So when you're given an obstacle, you have to be extremely precise in a matter of seconds to then continue with nothingness for another 30 seconds. These sections suck, and I see no redeeming factors for them. But then we come to the other half of the level. There are some stars here that I do enjoy. Tricky triangles and swinging in the breeze are really fun obstacle courses. They don't feel too slow, and their punishment isn't too severe. Additionally, getting back to this area doesn't take anywhere near as long as the other stars. Tricky Triangles is the highlight of this course. It's a consistently satisfying timer mission that is purely dictated by skill. There's also the red coin mission, which is kinda a nothing sort of mission to me. It feels very unnatural to the rest of the course, but to be fair, most of the course feels very unnatural. Random blocks are just floating, there's not really a consistent theme, and visually, it's all pretty ugly. So overall, there are some redeeming factors, but I still dread having to complete this level. Despite my overall opinions on this galaxy, I'm really impressed with the vision of this level. It's a very unique idea, and if executed properly, I feel as if it could have been one of the standout galaxies in the original game. But the commitment to making this a large galaxy was this level's downfall. This is a big issue I have with the original game, and probably one of the contributing factors to why I think the sequel is the better game. Some levels are forced to have way too many stars, whereas other neat ideas are limited to 1 star. Sweet Sweet Galaxy is one of my favorite galaxies, and it's over before it even begins. On the contrary, Seaslide Galaxy drags on for a premise that realistically should only be 2 to 3 stars long. The race through this level is fun, and it properly explores the underwater sections with compelling gameplay. But then you do it again. You follow this shark through the exact same course with no major differences. Instead, you're not even encouraged to go fast. If you go too fast, you actually end up crashing into his tail. Then guess what? You do it again. The Cosmic Mario race is the same thing, but it's even shorter. Then there's the Silver Star mission. I think this is a decent exploration of what seemed like the background to the course. It has some interesting discoveries, but the bee suit does kind of slow it down a bit, especially when the stars are so far apart. But guess what? You do it again! This time with 100 purple coins. And let me just say, this is one of the most painfully boring missions in the entire game. The silver stars are tolerable, but it's not amazing gameplay. But to do it again with the same slow gameplay, stretched out to last over 5 minutes, this is where I draw the line. I didn't even bother completing this mission, because if you miss a couple of coins, you have to slowly scale this whole loop again. I've already gone around this loop at least 6 times. I don't want to do it a 7th.
Of all the incredible areas in Mario Galaxy, the most disappointing of them all for me has to be Seaslide Galaxy. The serene tropical atmosphere of Seaslide looks amazing and seems perfect for a sandbox level, so just why does this galaxy miss the mark so badly? Well, for me, it comes down to 2 main reasons. Firstly, there are good stars here, but they fall into the trap of being way too similar. 1 race is great, 2 is a bit unoriginal, but at least Speeding Penguin is fun, but 3 races all in the exact same loop? That's just lazy. This one's not even good since it's so short. Come on, surely there must be something else. Silver Stars is where the collectathon style missions take over, and the Seaslide map does not lend itself to this gameplay type in the slightest. It's absolutely huge, and the circular structure means it can take 5 minutes sometimes to get to the other side. The B power-up is just too slow for a Silver Star mission. Maybe with the Red Star it would have been fine, but crawling across the water just about faster than a speeding slug isn't fun. Oh, and you thought that was bad. Did I mention this galaxy has a purple coin star? Welcome everyone to the single worst star in the entire Galaxy series, a place where hopes are crushed and fun goes to die. 5 silver stars was already bad enough, but having to collect 100 purple coins is just downright evil. You can spend ages combing an area only to realize you've missed a single coin, fly all the way back around to look for it, and then it might not even be there. There's making a big sandbox level, and then there's adding so much sand with no gameplay that it becomes the goddamn Sahara Desert. Seaslide is a galaxy which has nothing to say, and it knows it, and it deservedly ranks in the bottom tier. Or, I don't know what spot Kerblay is actually putting this in, so whatever spot it's in right now, tier.
Not gonna lie, this level really shouldn't be counted. It barely qualifies for a sandbox level, but I wanted to have at least 1 entry from every game, and this is the closest thing to a sandbox level from 3D Land. The desert portion of this level does its best to add engaging elements, such as the enemies, collectibles, and secrets, but in all honesty, the star medal is the only noteworthy inclusion here. You either just break the block by rolling into it, or you can follow the music note path to unlock Tanuki suit. Another cool secret of this level is the second style medal. It can be pretty difficult to launch yourself onto the platform, so you could just jump down from the top of the level instead, which contributes to the sandboxy feel of this level. This was definitely an occasion where I thought there'd be a death plane, but surprisingly you can just fall down if you know where the platform is. So despite this being a very small level, I think there's enough here to keep you entertained, and nothing about this level is outright bad, just extremely forgettable. Now, because this is the one and only 3D land level, it's time I give an average performance for this game. This is something I'll do for every game in the series when the final level appears in the ranking. In this case, because there's only one level, the average rank for 3D land is 62 out of 65, giving it a D tier ranking. This level feels like a bit of wasted potential. There's another level that has the same design philosophy as this one, with you having to collect the key coins, but even though this appears way later in the game, it feels dialed back. Like, so many of the hiding spots feel lazy. There's one right in the open, one on an invisible cloud, and one that requires just checking random doors. There's some cool interactivity here and there, but I can't help but feel underwhelmed when coming to this area. Everything's so barren and plain looking. I guess you could argue the music contributes to the isolating atmosphere of the level, and I would agree the music is the best part of this level, but it doesn't exactly excuse how lackluster this area feels. Technically, the rest of the level is a direct result of exploration, so I will count this, but you're immediately treated with 30 seconds of boredom, followed by a decent level mechanic where you're speeding along a platform that dips into fog. However, none of this changes my mind about the level. I'll always see it as wasted potential. In doing this ranking, I recognize that for some games, it's just not fair. The scale of an Odyssey level compared to a Bowser's Fury level is extremely different, but it is what it is. Bowser's Fury as a whole is just a smaller experience, and resultantly, a lot of the levels are gonna appear in the bottom tiers. In saying that, it's not reflective of what I think of that game. Bowser's Fury is a fantastic experience, but some levels are just so nothing in the grand scheme of things. Risky Whisker Island is the most lackluster level in the game. The idea of these falling blocks is great. We've seen it in previous Mario games, and it injects a sense of urgency. But this level is so easy, that urgency created is almost non-existent, and really all the objectives blend together to essentially follow the same path each time. The fuzzy mission makes it a little harder as you can't just speed through the level, but really it's the same experience. The timer mission is the only time we're treated to something new, and whilst it's pretty enjoyable, it's incredibly simple and is over before it even begins. Unless you're a huge fan of this level's gimmick, there's nothing special on offer here, and the only reason it's higher than the previous levels is because there's nothing inherently bad in this level. It's just one of the most forgettable levels in the series. Within Mario 3D World, I would argue this is one of the standout levels, and that's purely cause it's such a breath of fresh air compared to the more densely packed design of the game. I love moments like this in video games where you can just soak in the beauty of an area, but in the greater context of the series, this is a pretty barren area. It's so flat with little landmarks or interesting points scattered within. On top of that, the pop-in for this area really breaks the immersion of a sprawling savanna. There are some really cool secrets here, but when you boil it down, a lot of it is just running through empty plains, hoping there's more to this area. Thankfully, one of the best secrets in the game is here, and just having this really ups its ranking, but overall, the small fraction of the level that does encourage exploration doesn't reward the player with enough meaningful secrets, and therefore, this level feels pretty unremarkable. This is kind of a weird island in the game. You start your journey here, so the first shine is extremely easy. To be fair, it's more of a tutorial than a sandbox area, but after beating the game, you can come back here and fully explore the island. As post-game content, I was definitely expecting a bit more from this island, as disappointingly, most of the shines feel like beginner missions. The graffiti shine is such a non-challenge, and the Guigi chase is something we've seen plenty of times in the rest of the game. Then of course there's the classic Fury blocks. This is a problem with every level in the game, so I can't fault this level too much for having it, but at the least, it could have been in a better hiding spot. The only redeeming factor for this level is the cat shards. I think these are hidden very effectively and make up for a lot of the boring missions in this level. Still, it's hard to argue that this deserves anything higher than D tier. Compared to the other locations in the first set of islands, Fort Flaptrap is seriously lacking any depth. Instead of being a build-up of obstacles with some secrets thrown in, it's more like one core idea, that being the flip-out boards over a pool of lava. Now, don't get me wrong, I love this idea. When it appeared in Mario Galaxy 2, it made for a very engaging challenge. Additionally, in 3D World, adds a lot of chaos to some levels. And here, it's honestly still a good feature, but there is almost no challenge to this, and it feels very non-threatening in how the difficulty comes from sabotaging enemies instead of carefully navigating the course yourself. That's at least the main mission of this level. Everything else feels like an afterthought, and whilst I still had fun collecting the blue coins and finding the cat shards, the highs of this level are very tame. This level is essentially a boss arena. The catch is, each time you beat a boss, the arena rises up a level. This means you have to find a new way to get to the next boss fight. In concept, this is a really cool idea, and it's the main reason why this level is as high as it is. However, due to its smaller scale, the challenge of getting to the top is consistently easy, when I feel like it could have been a gauntlet of different platforming challenges. For the most part, this is your standard boom boom and pom pom fights. They're so overplayed that it's not really fun versing them anymore. However, the final fight with Boom Boom is surprisingly engaging. It's kinda stupid how just changing the floor makes this the best Boom Boom fight, but it goes to show how low the bar really is. If you don't enjoy any of the fights in this stage, I can see how this would be way lower, but I somewhat enjoy this level for what it has to offer. This is probably the shortest Mario level ever. Without getting any of the collectibles, this level takes 8 seconds to beat. But the green stars make this level a little more engaging. I personally love tiny levels. Something about being able to quickly check off all the objectives is so satisfying. It's interesting how this level is basically a tiny experiment with the double cherry. It asks you to collect the cherries and hold on to your clones, as you'll need them to get across the platforms. The only thing is, you totally don't need them. This level can be cheesed so easily, and they must have known this, because just using a catsuit makes the whole gimmick of this course skippable. I still kinda like it though. Once again, this is my personal bias, but I've always been into small levels with little secrets tucked away. But obviously, it can't go any higher than C tier, because there's no depth to this level whatsoever. This is by far the most iconic location in Bowser's Fury. Nintendo have always been very good at designing the introduction level to not only make it a good introduction to the mechanics, but also just a great area to explore. Scamper Shores is littered with secrets, which you naturally seek out due to how open the level design is. The level flows so naturally, yet is always hiding something around the corner. Collecting the 5 cat shards is extremely fun in this level, as the hiding spots are all so well hidden, but I feel like half the missions are kinda boring. This is an issue that plagues the entirety of Bowser's Fury, but there are so many repeated missions. Killing Luigi and bringing back the key are missions that are constantly repeated. Granted, this is the first time they appear, but unlike other levels, the layout of this course makes this incredibly simple to complete. Don't get me wrong, I still love exploring this neat little area, but I can't lie, I would have expected a bit more originality from the first level in the game. At least we got a banger song out of it though. This is a kingdom that knows what it wants to be. It's more of a plot device within the campaign of Mario Odyssey, rather than an engaging sandbox level. You fight Bowser for the first time here, and the fight is pretty entertaining. For your first couple of times playing this, I feel like the timing of things could be difficult, and dodging the hats was something I struggled with a bit. But when you come back to this more experienced, it's a lot easier to complete normally. But I still have fun trying to optimize the fight by skipping certain attacks. The fight alone gives this level a better ranking. When the kingdom expands after beating the game, it offers a couple of challenge rooms and some repeated moon objectives. However, the only highlight here is the face minigame. It's so funny watching how screwed up Mario's face can become. Visually, this is a serenic kingdom, and it's a nice place to just take a break, but the lack of substantial content is why I have to place it this low. Being within the first set of islands in Bowser's Fury leaves this course feeling a bit boring. The core gimmick of this level being the bounce pads is fine, the area where they're rising up and down ensure you nail the timing, and when you're put on a timer and the platforms are moving fast, it can be a bit more challenging. There are also a few nooks and crannies here that make finding the cat shards engaging. With the addition of a few enemies, I think this level balances its difficulty perfectly for one of the first levels. And there's even an effort to hide the Fury blocks. So overall, this level doesn't exceed in anything, but it's very solid. One funny detail I want to point out about this level is the German translation. Boing boing incel is the funniest thing to me. One thing I like about Bowser's Fury is that it expands on a lot of the level gimmicks of some Mario 3D World stages. 3D World is jam-packed with ideas, and I feel like a lot of the time it rushes through at such a quick pace. You wonder what potential some of these gimmicks could have. This level briefly expands on the invisible platforms in a really clever way, by having an obstacle course that slowly reveals itself, with a few sections that plays tricks on you. A neat touch is that ground pounding and throwing fireballs can reveal more of the level, otherwise you can test your confidence and just charge on through. The blue coin mission is fun in this sense, as you kinda have to trust your instincts but not go too fast and mess it up. Due to the level's small scale, it's actually pretty easy to skip large chunks of the stage. I think this is a good way to reward players who are more familiar with the stage layout. So overall, this was an interesting expansion of the idea, but not too memorable in the grand scheme of things. This is probably the largest level in Bowser's Fury, but don't let the scale fool you into thinking this level has a lot to offer. The main focus here is the propeller box, and for the main level, it feels more akin to the level design of 3D World. Like this just feels like an obstacle course with a bit too much waiting around, but I can appreciate the cat shards you find on the way. These are hidden really well, and there was one specifically that took me ages to find. I don't know if the timer challenge is actually hard for this level, but it took me a few attempts to get this right, so I welcome a bit of difficulty for what is mostly an easy game. I mentioned before the repeated mission types aren't that exciting, but in this case, I think traversing the icy platforms to catch Luigi is a fun spin on the idea. But overall, I can't say it really boosts this level's ranking. I'm so glad they brought back the boot in Bowser's Fury. This was such a fun item to mess around with, desperately trying not to bump into anything. With this level, it's definitely utilized effectively, as trying to keep your momentum whilst collecting the shines makes for a short-lived yet thrilling slide. The blue coin mission furthers this intensity, as it's really easy to miss a coin and have to start over. The key mission that's present here is probably the best version of any level, as it recontextualizes the level, making you have to find a path back to the top. It was really interesting for me, as Fury Bowser was active when I was doing this, so there were multiple different paths to take and a lot more obstacles. This level's smaller scale is what holds it back, as well as the fact that most missions are repeating the same objective, just a little different. But even though this level is lacking a lot of substance, it does a lot with such a little space, and still creates a memorable level.
Slipskate Slope is a short section of a level in Bowser's Fury. With 5 different shines to collect, it has the potential to be a very fun segment. You can beat the level normally, collect all 5 shine shards, have Bowser break some blocks, grab all the blue coins from the P-switch, and even run through the level backwards. While these are fairly creative ways to try and make the section more interesting, I found it a little disappointing because of how short it is. I really like the boot power-up, but you have about 10 seconds before it's all over. You also unfortunately can't take the boot off the island. So in all, I like the level, but wish it was a lot longer.
During a first playthrough of Mario Odyssey, this is one of those moments that sticks out. It's such a dark contrast to the otherwise bright and vibrant environments that's explored in Mario games. Then you actually get to fight the dragon, and granted it's not as intense as any Dark Souls fight, but it definitely gives off the same vibes, especially when there's no other comparable Mario boss. Personally, I love this boss fight. Any fight that requires precise and swift movement to avoid attacks is always a good time in my eyes. Dodging the lasers really starts to ramp up by the final phase, and I welcome this difficulty. But then we have the rest of the kingdom, which is just so nothing. Much like the Cloud Kingdom, both these areas are clearly meant to be boss arenas, and if I were considering the sub areas, there would be a bit more content to unpack here. The Ruined Kingdom has 2 extra moons we can count, that being the hidden chest and the moon on the dragon's horn, and these are really neat. It's nothing crazy, but it makes the most of a small area. So nothing about this kingdom is that bad, just rather uneventful outside the sick dragon boss. I wouldn't be surprised if people never knew about this level. It's one I definitely forgot about until I did some research for this video, and it only just qualifies as a sandbox level due to the red coin mission. If you don't know about this level, this was essentially a boss level introduced in Mario 64 DS, as to unlock Mario as a playable character, you needed to jump into this painting and go fight Goombos. What's interesting to me is the atmosphere in this level. It's a super strange, almost tech demo-like level. The skybox is creepy as hell, the music is eerie, and the layout of this level is all over the place. Like, it's really just a bunch of obstacles scattered over some poison. For the most part, this is a really flat level, until suddenly you need to float up into a tree that's out of sight. Honestly, the red coins here are just so all over the place, and needing every player to get all the coins is a bit frustrating, especially for this Wario block that's just placed somewhere in the void. But I can't lie in saying that I did enjoy this, because some of these red coins are either hidden really well or require some intense platforming to acquire. The boss is something I wish was a bit harder now, as it's so easy to cheese this fight by hopping around Goombos. But in saying that, I found this boss really hard as a kid, so maybe it's a well balanced boss for all skills. Overall though, this stage is a bit of a fever dream, with the good moments sprinkled between a lot of questionable decisions. A sandbox level centered around the clear pipes is a genius idea. In 3D World, I love rebelling against the level design and seeing how far I could make it on top of the pipes. So I'm glad to see that Nintendo has encouraged this experimentation with the clear pipes. Some of the collectibles are located outside the pipes, and the fire bros can be eliminated if you venture out to them. Additionally, the key mission here requires you to navigate the pipes from the top, and if you fall into the water, you have to start over. This was a really clever implementation of the key mission, and there are multiple ways of completing it. Doing the level the normal way is still pretty fun, and the level builds up in a natural way. First, it's a section with no enemies. The only somewhat obstacle is the light trolling. Then the fire bros pose a threat and teach you to stall if that would protect you. You're introduced to the spike balls and are taught how to destroy them. Then you're given a bit of a puzzle to solve in order to finish the stage. It's a short challenge, but I think the freedom of doing this however you want makes the level stick out more to me. The blue coin mission further expands on the level and ensures that you map out the right path to get everything under the strict timer. Inherently, there's nothing wrong with this course, and it does a lot of things to make me appreciate it, but due to its small scope, it's just an average level in the grand scheme of things. This is one of the post-game kingdoms for Mario Odyssey, and realistically, I shouldn't be counting it within this ranking, but I wanted this to be a complete ranking, and I'm sure some people would point this out. So Rule 3 is really gonna hurt this kingdom's ranking, cause this is essentially a sub-area kingdom. Some of the best and most challenging sub-areas in the game appear in this kingdom, and I have to at least acknowledge that this kingdom would have placed a lot higher if I were considering the sub-areas. But without them, this area is a mess. I mean, it sticks to the moon aesthetic, but it doesn't benefit from it at all. It's just a grey mess of blocky rocks. However, there is more to this kingdom, and that's found with the boss rush. I'm a huge fan of this gigantic challenge. Although the Brutals give off the same vibes as Koopalings, I think the combination of their dark side variations offer more of a challenge than any other boss in the game. I love how chaotic Hopper gets, and even though I don't think the other bosses are as amazing, I like how you need to get through all 4 stages without dying. Then to cap it off, fighting the Mecha Brutal with moon gravity has to be one of the funnest fights in the game. I love how easily you can cheese this boss fight, and the added challenge of more projectiles is one I welcome. Despite all the praise I'm giving for this boss rush, it's still a pretty bleak kingdom in the grand scheme of things, and the incredible boss rush doesn't save it from its barren overworld. I still feel kinda weird about putting this level in C tier, because it's probably one of the most interesting levels in the entirety of Sunshine. The hotel feels like a giant maze, and there's no mission that internalizes that more than Shine 3. When I think of this level, this is probably the first thing that comes to mind. If you're unfamiliar with it, you essentially have to navigate through this deeply complicated path to find a fruit for Yoshi so that you can later use him to get past a Boo. I still don't know if I like this mission or not. It's a complex mission with a lot of cool secrets in it, but I tend to find this more frustrating than rewarding. You're given so little clues on what to do, especially when you get to this room. Like, I have the fruit, but it's never really communicated you can open the door whilst holding the fruit. And like everything in Sunshine, trying out the right answer could just not work because of how janky everything is. It's also so frustrating how stepping out of a door makes you need to start the whole process again. And if you take Yoshi to this area, he is stuck. I tried for ages to get out of here and nothing worked. Also, how is it obvious that jumping in this spot would rocket you up to the next story? I get that this is a cool mission, but in typical Sunshine fashion, I'm so divided on the execution. This whole level is kinda divisive. The casino missions are not fun. Flipping these panels has to be the most Mario Sunshine thing ever. Like, I can see how the mechanic could work, but in execution, it is the most clunky thing. And then after all that suffering, you're rewarded with more suffering. The other mission in the casino is the King Boo fight. Now, this isn't a fight I particularly love or hate, but surely his weakness could have been communicated better. I spent ages trying to spray him, throw fruit at him, pretty much anything. But for some reason, we're supposed to know you have to throw the chili at him, then put out the fire with a random fruit. Reasonably, it makes no sense, and the clutter of all sorts of distractions makes finding the solution all the more obtuse. So I did mention that this is a divisive level, because despite me hating pretty much most of the missions that take place inside the hotel, this level has some really engaging missions outside the hotel. The Manta Ray fight has got to be my favorite in the entire game. There's something so satisfying about using all of Flood's abilities to take out a giant boss. Just spraying it like this tends to be pretty OP, but I find myself either getting hit or running out of water way too quickly. Hovering over it can be risky, as you could land on it when you run out of water. It's also really intense when it gets down to the really small shadows and they start targeting you. Overall, this boss is so fantastic and one of the most satisfying missions in the game. The cleanup mission is also really satisfying. I feel like this level lets you go wild with using Flood while still making you have an impact, which not that many levels let you do that in this game. So ultimately, this is my least favorite Sunshine level, and that's mostly due to the actual hotel. I really like some parts of this level, but I also hate some features, which is pretty indicative of my thoughts on Sunshine as a whole.
Mario Sunshine, a game that's hard to hate but even harder to like, and I can say the same for Sirena Beach. First off, I love the location. You got this hotel by the beach under a nice sunset. Episode 1 has you defeat Phantom Manta, which is a really strange boss fight, but that's why I like it. And the surreal vibes continue inside the hotel. It's my favorite part of the game with its gloomy atmosphere and condensed exploration. My favorite is episode 3 because it's funny barging through everyone's hotel rooms for our quest for a pineapple mango. But it all falls apart behind these doors. Hell yeah, let's go gambling! Having to spray the slots to get all 7s isn't that bad, but the flip panel puzzle is among the most jank and agonizing parts of this game. And then you still need to beat one of those painful secret stages afterwards. I don't like the King Boo fight either, it's so drawn out. This is also home to the freakiest Boo designs. So despite its glaring flaws, Sirena Beach is still my favorite level in Sunshine. I love everything outside the casino, and the casino is at least fun to hate.
So Nintendo considers this to be a galaxy with so much more potential than what's available, as they made this galaxy twice. Personally, I don't really gel with this one, and the fact that there's a mirrored copy of this course honestly brings down the both of them. Most of the time, I can't even remember what course has what missions. The B-suit is really not as great as it could have been. I hate how slow it is to move around, and getting rid of the ability to long jump just adds to the sluggish feel of the power-up. The first mission is a great introduction to this galaxy. Exploring this area is so rewarding because of the sheer amount of secrets here. Every nook and cranny is stuffed with collectibles. After collecting the B-suit, they do a good job of offering a variety of obstacles. Mechanics like the vine and flower blend naturally into the course design. I don't love platforming with this though. You're forced into it with the stage mechanics, but that doesn't mean they were a worthwhile idea. You're just slowly flying from one platform to another to refill your stamina. The 2D honey sections are a cool switch up, but in execution they can feel a bit clunky sometimes. However, the mission ends on a high note, with my favorite toad. The second mission opens up the other half of the galaxy, but most of the level is focused on a linear platforming challenge. This is kinda whatever, and the challenge of this level never ramps up that much. I guess it's kind of an introduction to small, weirdly shaped planets, but then this mission ends with the easiest boss in the game. Literally, some enemies are tougher than this. Something I never noticed about this mission is the progression from the last one. You killed the baby, now every bug is after you. You're still exploring the same area, and nothing has changed significantly, aside for all the bugs being here. The boss is by far the highlight of this stage. Sorry Honey Queen fans. It's probably the section that utilizes the B-suit the best, as you have to not only time the flower launch, but you have to hover over and ground pound at the right time. The first hit is easy, but by the final hit, it gets really precise. This is actually one of those cases where I think the fight is better in the original game. Don't get me wrong, the Cloud Flower is like 10 times better than the B-suit, but this fight works so much better within the constraints of the B-suit. For the most part, the comets are fine, the race has given me some close calls, but nowadays it's pretty easy. And finding Luigi is a neat concept I wish they added more of. I kinda like this one though. It rewards you exploring the level in the previous missions. Once you know this course really well, it's obvious where he is, but I could see this being a challenge due to how many trees there are. Finding the purple coins is the most Sandbox mission in this galaxy, but I have mixed feelings on this one. For one, I think the purple coin missions need a timer. They seem kinda odd without it, as there's no urgency to finding these. On the other hand, some of the hiding spots are really well hidden and push you to explore what seems like out of bounds. Even for the ones that are placed over cliffs, the camera moves to accommodate this. So yeah, this mission really pushes you to explore every nook and cranny, and I gotta appreciate it for getting the most out of this area. So overall, what hinders my enjoyment here is the B-suit. I think the first level does a decent job of introducing new mechanics to make it not too boring, but it also drags on for a bit. The first couple of missions are a bit hit or miss, but exploring the main island allows me to appreciate the more open design. Even though Gold Leaf Galaxy should feel more boring due to it being a repeat, I can collectively analyze all the missions and say this one is a bit worse off.
HoneyHive, the galaxy's so nice they used it twice. I really appreciate the chill vibe of this level. It's on the easier side, which fits one of the first stages in the game, and the upbeat music is so welcoming as you explore this little community of bees at a leisurely pace, which I think aids the purple coin mission especially in being super relaxing and pleasant to go through. As with most galaxy power-ups, I appreciate how Bee Mario isn't a direct upgrade. You have new movement options and terrains you can traverse, but this comes at the cost of some of the ones you had before, making it more interesting to experiment with and seeing where and when you want to use it. The costume change also has these flip bugs go from terrified of you to your natural predator, which is a fun little bit of world building. The boss lineup here is kinda weak, even if the Mandibug stack is a decently funny anticlimax with how much it's built up, but the progressing invasion of these rascally neighbours helps each of the three main levels to flow into each other very nicely. While not one of my favourite parts of the game, I still had a lot of fun going back through HoneyHive. If I were to put it in a tier list, well I mean come on, the joke writes itself.
In my opinion, this is the most difficult Bowser's Fury level. It could be due to my impatience, but for my ego's sake, I'd like to say it's pretty hard. I'm always trying to make big skips, and if you're really good at the game, the blocky level design allows you to pull off some crazy moves. The thread of lava is a great obstacle, and it makes getting the well-hidden cat shards a challenge. I think the key mission works pretty well here. It doesn't recontextualize the level by going backwards, but the limited movement injects a different type of challenge that I can appreciate. The timer mission is fine. It can end up being pretty close depending on what time you get to the spinning log. Overall, this level is a very solid idea, and nothing is wrong with the execution, but due to the smaller scope, I crave more of this idea and wish the level was a bit bigger. Jolly Roger Bay is just vibes. I don't care if you hate that word, cause how else am I supposed to describe it? Immediately you're transported to such a tranquil space with the music. The foggy water and deep blue cliffs create such an isolating feel, and I'm all for it. Then you swim underwater and all sense of peace is eliminated. I think this disruption of peace is kinda emblematic of what I feel for this stage. Some of the missions here are fantastic ideas. Blasting to the small cliff up the top nails both the puzzle solving aspect and difficulty aspect. Swimming to the sunken pirate ship and trying to get the eel out is a bit finicky, but once you do, you're put under immediate pressure and have to guess the right order of the chess. Mario 64 is a game where I keep discovering new things after playing it for close to 15 years. There's many more things I'll mention in later levels, but for this mission, it took me till this video to realize the order of the chest is determined by which way the last chest is facing. So if you pointed a laser between them, this is roughly the direction it would follow. After collecting them, I love how you can skip the platforming section and quickly swim to the top. The other chess mission is just so iconic. This has come back in other Mario games, and the pattern is ingrained into my brain. The red coin mission is pretty fun, aside for collecting the coins in the clams. And side note, I love how much of this level follows a storyline. You scare away the eel, and next level it retreats into its hole. You drain the pirate ship, and it rises up for you to explore next mission. It's cool details like this that make the worlds of Mario 64 feel more alive. This is where the praise for this level ends though. Like I mentioned before, swimming in this game is just not great. When you have to be precise, it reveals its cracks. And trying to get the star behind the eel is a prime example of this. Doing this to get the eel out in the first place is really frustrating. I swear sometimes I am as close as I can be, but it won't come out. We also have a metal cap star, and I've already explained why I dislike these. There's no inherent challenge to this, it's just a boring roadblock. So I'd say this level is actually really good for a water level. The swimming's fine for the most part when you're just trying to get to other parts of the level, but in these specific moments, it does falter. The music of this stage is top tier, but to be fair, it's the same music as Dia Dia Docks, and I hate that course. So the environment alone can't save this course from C tier. Gelato Beach is one of the most inviting locations in Mario Sunshine. The second I'm here, it reminds me of why I love tropical areas so much. The saturated blues and greens look so stunning, and I love how relaxing everything looks. The missions here are the furthest thing from relaxing though. I mean, the frickin' sandbird mission is here. When the bird turns over, that is the definition of stressful. And don't even get me started on the Watermelon Festival. Navigating this flimsy watermelon between the countless cataquacks is so frustrating, and whoever designed this pier is a diabolical person. I think this level does a decent job of exploring the whole area, but that doesn't necessarily mean I like the ways it does it. Like the watermelon mission and the Piantissimo race feature this back area, but nothing is done with a lot of the space here. The blue coins solve this a bit, but I wish the shines took more advantage of the level. I'm not even saying I hate the race. This is one of the better layouts, as it's not just a straight line and requires some quick platforming. The second shine is a mission that explores the towers pretty well. The only reason I don't love it is because sometimes you get unlucky and nothing really works that well. I'm willing to forgive this because it's such a clever use of the mirrors and is a unique mechanic we haven't seen anywhere else. The huge highlight of this course has to be the Wiggler boss. Timing your attacks is crucial, but you also have to study its pattern to make sure you're spraying the right part. This is such a creative implementation of FLUDD, and there's still quite a bit of risk to this one as you're standing right in its path. Despite housing two of the most hated shines in Mario Sunshine, I don't have too much to say about this one. I think the missions here are a bit of a letdown when the actual theming is spot on. I mean, I enjoy getting the red coins and the corals cause it's relaxing, but it's really not enthralling gameplay. Overall, the boss is the only shine I really like in this stage. I like the missions that get some good usage out of Flood, but for the most part, the shines that aren't the worst two missions in the game end up being a bit too forgettable. I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with Noki Bay. I feel like the actual level here is very deep with its exploration, but only a couple of shines take advantage of it. I like the levels where you navigate a vertical maze of platforms and find all the secret passages hidden in the walls. The second shine feels like the most fleshed out in this regard. Getting through the linear paths in the mountainside is both a cool mystery and a fun obstacle course. At the end, you do refight Blooper for the third time, but I like this boss, so I don't mind. It feels like this area is underutilized. Like most of the puzzle elements of the cliff are saved for blue coins, and I could not care less about these. There is a secret star that requires using one part of the cliff, but I'm not gonna lie, I thought all the secret stars were in the floodless sections, so I didn't find out about this one till writing the script. Uncorking the waterfall is a cool bit of world building, as this has ramifications on the later missions, but refighting this lame boss from Pina Park isn't too exciting. To be fair, this version is a bit more tense as you're on a cliffside and you need to get really close to the edge to hit him. Also, the obstacle course leading up to him is pretty entertaining, but when you think about it, two of this stage's boss battles are just repeats. Thankfully, the third one and last boss of this stage is completely original and very unique. You have to clean this eel's teeth, and that's how you defeat him. I like this boss in concept, but in execution, the loose controls make this a nightmare to complete. Coupling the loose controls with the limited oxygen supply makes this such a slow boss to complete, and when you're spraying it, it's impossible to stay still. Maybe you can master the controls for this, but I have no idea how it works, and when you play it for the first time, you'll see how clunky it feels. You do get a mission before this to get used to the weird controls, but there's no pressure with this one. You're not really required to be precise with anything. In fact, this just feels like a bonus stage from Peach's Castle. The only notable thing here is the weird book. I remember watching videos about this as a kid and thinking it was the creepiest thing ever. So I don't vibe with these underwater shines, and I think that's where my love-hate relationship with this course comes from. Because they do this 3 times. The final shine is collecting red coins underwater again. This is super frustrating, as this time you have to be even more precise. Getting the coins on the edge of the tail pisses me off so much. It's moving so quickly and the loose underwater controls do not fit this mission at all. Also, every now and again, the fish just disperses, and if you don't know that it comes back together, you'd reasonably be so confused on what to do next. I've been pretty negative towards this course, but I think for these shines it's well deserved. But the Shell's Secret and Shadow Mario mission are surprisingly good. Getting to the secret shell is pretty difficult, but there's a lot of different ways to do this, and you're rewarded with an actual good secret level. The Shadow Mario shine actually works really well in this course. You can't just cheese it and defeat him in 10 seconds. You have to follow behind him and have to do some difficult platforming along the way, while still being precise enough with the little time you have to spray him. It's nothing mind-blowing, like it's still pretty easy, but in this case, it was worth mentioning. The only shine I haven't mentioned is the race, and that's because there is absolutely nothing to say about this. It took such a bland route for a course that had way better potential. I think this is one of the more interesting stages based on just its overworld, but the shines that are actually contained within it make some baffling decisions. And despite there being some really fun missions that use the level's geometry very well, I can't help but feel frustrated by a lot of the choices made here. The structure of Mario Sunshine is so odd to me. Like, the game has one of the most involved stories for a mainline Mario game. This was the first and last time they had proper voice acting, and that was probably a good call.
Mario! How dare you disturb my family vacation?
But still, the story feels pretty important at the start of the game. Pina Park comes around and ups the stakes for the story to just completely disappear. This is only the 4th level, but after fighting Bowser Jr., they head off to a sick mountain and that's it. That's just level 1 of the stage. You still have to complete everything else there. It's just really weird to me you have a boss stage on Shine 1, then go about the stage normally like nothing happened. The concept for the boss is really unique for a Mario game. You're stuck on rails and have to fire rockets at the Mecha Bowser. You go through the roller coaster doing loop-de-loops and sharp drops, and this makes it really difficult to line up your shot. There's also bullet bills that will come from either side that you have to quickly spray. So you can't just hold onto your rocket for too long to line up a better shot. Sometimes you just gotta go for the long shot. I suck at this boss, but it's no reason to hate it. I think it has a tough learning curve for a concept that hasn't shown up anywhere else in the game. But it's a fair challenge and just goes to show how versatile Flood is. The rest of the stage does a decent job of exploring a cool theme. The red coins can be a bit janky, but that's the case with everything in Mario Sunshine. There's a lot of ways to get around the pirate ship, so I don't mind this mission that much. The Ferris wheel, whilst exploring more of the theme, is a shine I wish didn't exist. This frustrated me beyond belief. But much like the red coin shine, you can skip a lot of the mission through cheesing it. The chains in my experience were super janky, and I had to climb this area like 20 times. So I would have really appreciated knowing about this. The only other shine to explore a new area in the theme park is the Yoshi Go Round secret. This mission alone really boosts this level's ranking. I mean, right away the mystery of this is pretty intriguing, but I'm sure most players can figure out it has something to do with hatching Yoshi. Depending on what fruit you have to collect, this mission can vary in difficulty. You have to scour this level for all the different fruits until you find the right one. And this mission alone does a good job of encouraging the player to explore all of the level, as long as it's not the fruit right next to Yoshi. Once you get the right colored Yoshi, you're treated to a difficult floodless level. I hate this obstacle course, but when I look at this mission as a whole, it's very enjoyable overall. The 8th shine doesn't explore the course anymore, but it introduces an even more challenging version of the boss. There's so many different ways to line up your shots. With 3 laps, you have plenty of opportunities to get this right. I could not get it right, however. Timing this is even harder than the original fight, and I'm sure it feels satisfying when you master it, but for me, it seemed like everything I thought would hit was nowhere near. The obligatory Shadow Mario mission is nothing special, and I'm probably not going to mention them anymore unless they add some sort of challenge to the stage. But most of the time, it is piss easy and doesn't do anything special. Exploring the theme park is the most exciting part of this stage, but 2 of the main missions take place outside the park, and these feel like a waste. The whole game is already beach themed, so why do we need to explore another beach? The mole is an alright boss, it's not that challenging, and just throwing bombs at it 3 times isn't that unique, especially when you compare it to the other boss of this stage. You do unlock a bonus stage from completing it, so overall this mission is fine, but reviving the sunflowers is the most boring mission in this level, even more boring than spraying Shadow Mario for the 4th time. At least that mission ends quickly. This drags on for way too long with no sort of challenge to it. So overall, this course feels like a bit of wasted potential. It has some high highs, low lows, and mid mids, I guess. I think keeping the level focused on exploring the theme park should have been the main goal, as deviating from it only allows for some of the missions to feel gratifying.
Thanks for having me, Kerblay. I'm here to talk about my favorite 3D Mario Sandbox level, which of course is Pina Park from Super Mario Sunshine. I think what makes a good 3D platformer is the world that you platform through. You don't want to be jumping on objects that are just there for the sake of being jumped on. You want it to be objects that are integrated throughout the world seamlessly. Super Mario Sunshine did this a lot, but I think one of the best examples is Pina Park, where pretty much every platform is just an object that would make sense to be inside of a theme park. From various awnings that you can bounce on, a Ferris wheel with many carts, and other various attractions that make jumping around in a small space not actually feel that small. In fact, it feels rather expansive and almost unlimited. My favorite attraction is the swinging boats, which allows you to jump really high to collect coins, but also can be tricky to keep your ground on. There's this one star where you have to hop on them to collect the 8 red coins, and I think it might be one of my favorite stars in the whole game. Another good star is when you have to fight Bowser Jr.'s giant robot while on top of a roller coaster collecting missiles to shoot at it. It also comes with a pretty nice cutscene with some awful audio balancing, but other than that, it's pretty exciting. I just think it's impressive how lateral they made this level with all of the platforms being natural integrations. Whether you're riding to the top of the Ferris wheel or climbing the backside in the more maintenance-only area, it still all feels like it belongs inside of a theme park, and that's why this is one of my favorite levels in the Mario universe. Thank you for having me, Kerplay. It's pretty awesome.
Despite feeling a bit blander due to it repeating a previous Galaxy, when I look at everything this has to offer, it's just a bit better. Exploring the main area for the blue chips is fine, but after doing it so much, every hiding spot feels predictable. This pipe up here would have been a really neat hiding spot instead. Chasing the bunnies is so weird. Like, why is Nintendo obsessed with this idea? Sometimes I really struggle with this one, but sometimes the bunny just walks into me. So it really depends on what the bunny is feeling that day. Even though I hate the Cataquacks as an enemy, their implementation here is genius. The bee suit pairs so well with this idea, and unlike the bugs, this mission effectively ramps up in difficulty. Guiding the Cataquacks through a maze is so creative, then it develops on this idea with obstacles in the way, weird planets to navigate, and the addition of the bee suit to complement the puzzles. A later stage also develops on this idea, and frankly, it's genius, but we'll get to that later. This big linear obstacle course makes me question what should count in this ranking, and I don't know, I'm still gonna count this as a result of exploration. I love the threat of rain clouds and how they can be coupled as platforms for Bee Mario, and I think the boss is very engaging. You can make it to the center with Bee Suit, but if you get hit by the water balls, you have to do it using the button. I really like this aspect of the boss, because if you time it well, you can do this boss really quickly. The level has already taught you water is bad, but the punishment here isn't too dire. Both comets take you through the boss mission, and I don't get it. This level is fine, but going through it for essentially 2 timer missions is a bit too much, when it would have been way cooler to go through the Cataquack mission again. The secret star is really bizarre. It's not hidden that well, but at the same time, after exploring this stage so much, I was expecting it to be anywhere but here. If you asked me a couple years ago about the bubble stars, I would have hated this. But with the 3D All-Stars version, pointing at the screen gives you good control of the bubble. So I honestly really enjoy this odd star. Don't get me wrong, it's super out of place in this level and has me to believe they were running out of ideas for this level. Like 12 stars for the same layout is crazy, but in a way, I kinda like this star. So this level does overstay its welcome, but the sum of its parts ends up being pretty fun overall. We start off the B tier with a level that is missed potential, but when you play it going through the campaign of Mario Galaxy 2, it's a great surprise that still has a lot of interesting elements as a reimagining. I think one of the main reasons this feels like a downgrade is because the movement wasn't really designed for levels like this. Exploring the same area is cool because this is just a great level as is. Fighting King Womp is a great subversion of expectations, and as a whole, the bosses of Galaxy are all really solid. So having a grander fight fits the game, and despite it being pretty easy, I appreciate it. The Silver Star mission fits this Galaxy perfectly, as you get to explore the stage in a whole new way. None of the Silver Stars are in locations where the original stars from Mario 64 would be, which just goes to show how jam-packed this original level was. The Cloud Flower is a joy to use, and is vital for getting most of the Silver Stars. The problem comes when the 3rd star is essentially a repeat of the last mission. It's a waste of a slot, as putting a timer on the Silver Star mission does not make it harder. You've just done the mission, so you know exactly where the stars are, and the timer gives you way too much time to collect everything. I actually think a purple coin mission would have suited this level a lot more, as there's so much of the stage still left unexplored. The purple coin mission would have only worked if it had a limiting timer. Now, that's it for the main stars, but Galaxy 2 also had a controversial post-game feature. the green stars. I can see why a lot of people hated this, cause in some levels it's just so stupid. Throwing in double the stars with none of them being anywhere near as original as the normal stars can feel overwhelming. But I am a green star lover. These honestly feel like a fan hack, and I mean that in the best way. Repurposing these linear levels into collectathon type challenges is so in line with my interests. But when it comes to the more open levels, it just makes so much sense. The first 2 green stars add a unique challenge to the stage. You have to fall down to where one of the silver stars were, but this time you're not given the cloud flower, so it's much more riskier. Getting to this green star is always a bit awkward, but I love how it makes you really have to think of how to get so much height. It's pretty obvious you have to use the thwomp in some way, but I recently discovered there's more than one way of doing this, so it utilizes your mastery of the controls and some out-of-box thinking. The third green star is one of the worst examples of just putting it out of the way. Like, how are you supposed to know it's 3 cloud platforms off the stage? Usually you can hear the green star if you're close, but this is too far away to even give you that clue. I'd say the good outweighs the bad here, hence why this is B tier. The subversions they play with and the challenging green stars are more in line with what I'd hoped a second chance at this level would look like. But some of these missions waste your time when there was so much more to work with. Much like the Cloud Kingdom, this is a level that only expands after completing the game. However, the first time you go through this stage, it's a great introduction to Mario Odyssey. Capturing the frog for the first time is a bizarre moment, but the capture mechanic of this game was so genius, and this is a good showcase of how diverse the gameplay can become. I also love the fact that this area can be completed without the frog. Topper is my favorite Broodal. There are other variations of him that get more complex with the sheer amount of hats added to the fight, but I still really enjoy optimizing this beginning fight. The challenge of avoiding all the hats is great, and the fact that you can stomp on the correct hat to shorten his attacks is an interesting detail. When this kingdom opens up, I'd say it does a decent job of littering secrets around. Some of the more memorable missions in this game are the ones where you bring a capture to a point of the kingdom they shouldn't be in. Exploring the town is fun and teaches you to pay attention to the small details. I have to acknowledge there are some great sub areas here, and they add some much needed depth to this smaller kingdom. The Koopa free running missions are always pretty good. This one is no exception, as there's plenty of ways to optimize it. It's definitely not the best of them, but compared to some of the later layouts, it's surprisingly complex. The last good thing I'll mention is the theming. This is really unique for a Mario game, and even though the next level is the quintessential grassland, this being the first kingdom and going for a spooky ghost town is a switch up I like. Now, I don't blame this kingdom for being kinda basic. It is the first area in the game, and its main purpose was to be a tutorial. In saying that, a lot of the moons here seem like filler content. There's a lot of objectives that just require you to take a Paragoomba out over the fog. I guess there's some different challenges you do out here, but a lot of the moons are just kinda laying there in the fog. This is also a problem that plagues the overworld. Finding Captain Toad doesn't have any sort of challenge to it. He's just there, not even hiding. There's some moons that are out in the open, some mission types that are repeated, and the timer challenges can be brain dead easy. This is definitely a level let down by its lack of challenge. The few highlights of this stage are overshadowed by pointless moons. But overall, I still put this in B tier because some of them are boring at worst. Nothing here is outright bad, and there are some fun sections to this level, especially considering this is the tutorial level. I can't be too harsh on it, because it still does a decent job of expanding on the level and ensuring that each area is stuffed with things to do. Despite my overall opinions on water levels, the feeling of entering this kingdom for the first time and being swept away by the atmosphere is what I've come to appreciate most about these levels. The soft rainbow cliffs, coupled with the shimmer and glow of this stage, ensures I'm overcome with a deep calm. The music is top notch, and I love how it's dynamic with the water. All this stuff and the other minute details contribute to one of the best areas in the Mario series. But this is a water level, so it does sacrifice the gameplay for this atmosphere. For the most part, I would say the Cheep Cheeps alleviate the monotony of swimming. It's weird that Nintendo never teaches you how to swim faster though. So if you don't know, you have to press Y and B at the same time. This makes traversing the main underwater sections pretty effortless effortless. There's also a few moons in the main area that are hidden around, so collecting them all isn't too bad. Honestly, this level doesn't even rely on the water sections that much, but for some moons like the seed mission, I wish it just didn't exist. Swimming with the seed limits your movement so much and makes everything extra slow. Unlike some of the key missions where limiting your movement is directly related to the challenge of the course, limiting your movement here does absolutely nothing for the inherent challenge, other than testing your patience. Lakitu fishing is another mission type I hate deeply. Granted, this is a mission that shows up in a variety of kingdoms, so I can't specifically fault this kingdom for it, but I can admit it being introduced here was not a happy moment for me. I swear this never works properly for me. I had to search up how it works, and even with an explanation, it feels so finicky. For such a small kingdom, there's a lot of sub-areas to pad it out. This is what most of the underwater exploration leads to, so considering my rule, it does make the underwater sections kinda lackluster, and one of the main gimmicks introduced feeling kinda underutilized. The zipper is a satisfying mechanic, but nothing about it that's explored in the overworld feels worthwhile. I think the areas above water do a great job of scattering enough meaningful moons around. There's some easy objectives here and there, especially the ones where you just ground pound a spot, but I like the fight against Rango. The timer challenges are fun additions. Bringing a certain capture out of its natural habitat is a commonly used mission, but it's one I generally like. And the Koopa free running, whilst being really easy, is something that feels very satisfying to master by using some crazy tricks available. What holds this kingdom back is a lot of the basic and forgettable moons. 3 of the moons are just changing into different outfits, and like I mentioned before, a lot of the moons are just kind of there. There's not too much challenge tied to them aside for finding them in the first place. The centerpiece of this stage is the underwater city. It's a novel idea and it feels satisfying when you jump out into the anti-gravity water, but not too much is done with this idea, aside for the Captain Toad moon. This is a great hiding spot, and having multiple ways of getting to him is a cool sandbox application. So overall, this is a bit of a mixed bag. This being a water level contributes to the atmosphere, but ultimately might be this level's downfall, as the moons here don't feel too challenging. Despite the underwater sections taking up most of the kingdom, there isn't enough meaningful exploration outside of the sub-areas. This being an early game kingdom might have contributed to the lack of challenge present, but other early kingdoms do a better job of balancing all the factors that make a good sandbox level. So ultimately, the blame has to be on the lackluster moons that populate this level. Sunshine Seaside appeals to my obsession of miniature levels so much, and this level really nails what makes these areas fun to explore. The main mission is collecting all 5 key coins, and they've packed a diverse set of objectives into this. Some key coins are really well hidden, whereas others make you engage with all the different tools this level has to offer. And that's what I especially love about this level. You're given a boomerang flower, a Goomba suit, baseballs, and shells. Each item is a joy to mess around with, especially the shells and baseball. Having a bunch of different items really contributes to the sandboxy feel of this level. So you have a bunch of different mechanics to engage with here, but what's even better is how they get you to mess around even more to find all the hidden green stars. For how small this level is, it's crazy how much you could miss if you were just trying to find the key coins. To top it off, your reward is a fairly easy Plessy level, but a fun one nonetheless. This level's only problem is how small it is. I still think it's a great time, but compared to the other levels this series has to offer, it just doesn't compare. So this is the last entry for 3D World. Fitting that both linear games are the first ones to go out. The average rank for 3D World was 53 out of 65, giving it a C tier rank. Honestly, this level right here saved it from D tier, as this was much higher than the rest of the levels. This is easily the best region in Bowser's Fury, as it's the only level to make it to B tier, which once again isn't me saying that Bowser's Fury is a bad game. I think it's a testament to how good this level is. Despite it only having 4 proper missions, it's able to get so much out of such a small area that I can easily compare it to some of the bigger, more expansive levels in the series. The main focus of this level is the switchboards, and the obstacles that interact with the platforms. Already you're put under immediate immediate pressure as much of the course is filled with lava. So you have to avoid the fire bars, but also not too much as you'll fall off the small switchboard. I like how flexible the level is. Most of the time there's 2 different ways to overcome an obstacle, and both ways are decently challenging. The first mission also does a great job of hiding all the cat shards. Like, it's a linear path, but it's so easy to miss any one of these. Then to top it off, you fight one of the only bosses in the game. All these bosses are repeats from 3D World, but I always loved how stupid this one was. Hitting this dude into a bottle then rolling into him again is so satisfying. When you come back to this level, the layout of the course is the same, but man, they still made some big changes to the obstacles here, and it feels like a whole new level, incorporating all sorts of new enemies. Using the switchboards also does a lot to spice up the direction of the mission, and it finally allows us to ascend to the top of the mountain. There's a few things here and there, but most importantly, you get to throw some cats off a cliff. I mean, that's just peak gaming right there. Even the timer mission gives you an alternate path. I feel like no mission was put to rest here, except for the Fury blocks. This is the only letdown of the level, because I could imagine 20 better hiding spots, but instead they decide to put it at the start of the level. To be honest, I don't care that much, as the rest of the level serves us a great finale to this game. And now we get to see the average rank for Bowser's Fury. This game has a pretty even spread, with most levels appearing in C tier, so the average rank is 51 out of 65, meaning this game just beats out 3D World. And yeah, that makes sense. These are sandbox levels that typically expand on the ideas of 3D World. Still, this game ends up in C tier. As post-game content for Mario Odyssey, this feels like a fitting reward. I mean, every level using the word kingdom alluded to the Mushroom Kingdom, making its debut as a fully explorable region. So I guess it was kinda predictable. A lot of the level's moons are nods to older games, especially Mario 64. Off the top of my head, there's the Beam of Light moon, catching the bunny, lowering the moat, going onto the castle roof, and there's a whole mission devoted to the courtyard of Peach's castle. To be honest, I don't even think these overshadow most of the kingdom's moons. Sure, they're great references, but they're still fun in their own right. Also, there's still plenty of unique moons here to fill out the rest of the region. You herd sheep across the map, the timer challenges use the underutilized motorbike, and the minigame for this kingdom is so much fun. This did appear in the Cloud Kingdom first, but it doesn't detract from the light-hearted fun of the minigame. Exploring this kingdom is a treat for the most part, but if you've played this kingdom, you know what the glaring issue is. It's Toadette. Don't get me wrong, I love all Toads, especially Obi-Wan Toady, but they did my girl Toadette dirty. You have to go up to her and collect moons for each achievement you've completed. Individually, that is. There are 60 achievements, so you spend so much time talking to Toadette and watching the same animation. I don't even hate the concept of this, but my god, all these objectives are so basic. These are things like jump X amount of times, collect X amount of power moons, do different types of missions, all things you normally do if you go through the game. I think something more akin to skill points from Spyro the Dragon would have suited Toadette. This game's movement is crazy, and there's a lot of points where you're rewarded with big stacks of coins. Obviously, Nintendo is aware you can get to these points, so why not reward the players for mastering the game? Instead, we're left with a system that disrespects your time and doesn't require much motivation. Another aspect of this kingdom I'm mixed on are the boss refights. This takes up quite a big chunk of the kingdom. Most kingdoms have a main storyline to them, or sections that follow a linear path, and this kind of replaces that for the Mushroom Kingdom. On one hand, the bosses in Mario Odyssey are pretty fantastic, so versing harder versions is exactly what I'd want. But I'm also so mixed on these bosses. The Mecha Wiggler is my least favorite boss in the game. I get that they've brought back every main boss aside for Bowser and the Broodals, but honestly, this is one I wish they skipped. I'll go into more detail on why I don't like this boss in its original kingdom. As for now, I'll just say I didn't even bother with the harder version of this fight. The Pink Bird is a fight where I somewhat like the original, but this harder version can be a bit bullshit in a lot of regards. Most of the time you can't see what you're about to run into, and I don't know if anyone else has had this problem, but I tend to bonk on the goo when I'm near the top of her platforms. I think this boss isn't awful like the last one, but the additional difficulty comes off as inconsistent and a bit frustrating. The flower boss is so boring, and no amount of random obstacles can make this interesting. The dragon fight is something I liked a lot in its original encounter, so a harder version would be up my alleyway. The only thing is, this isn't harder. The pattern is so much easier to dodge, but I guess the ice physics make it a bit harder to be accurate, and the phase where it's firing all the wheels is so much more challenging in this regard. Honestly, I still like this fight despite it being easier overall. The two banger fights of this kingdom are the Ice Fist guy and Octopus Man. This fight, granting you unlimited water, is a fight that not only spices everything up considerably, but injects a different sense of difficulty that unlocks a new potential for the capture, as now the challenge comes from timing your attacks and dodging attacks while still staying close enough to keep up. The first time I played this, I got a bit impatient and tried to kill him as quick as possible, but the second time round, I learned how to better attack. And I think it has the right amount of difficulty for a refight. With the Ice Fist guy, nothing too much has changed, but this was just a really good fight in the first place, and now that there's no additional health, it works wonders for being a harder version. The problem I have is when you consider the kingdom as a whole. So much of the total moon count is taken up by both Toadette and the boss refights. And this is why the Mushroom Kingdom feels a bit disappointing. Every kingdom has a few boring moons. This kingdom is no exception, but for the most part I can excuse that if there's more to the kingdom. But there's not enough new ideas here, and a lot of the kingdom can feel like a chore because of this. For one, there was no reason to have 104 moons in this kingdom, and I think I could have appreciated the boss refights if the overall moon count was lowered, or if they made some more changes to some of the bosses, or if they lowered the boss count entirely. Still, this kingdom is a post-game treat, and you do get more kingdoms after this, so I didn't need it to be the ultimate challenge. But I can't deny, I wish this would be a bit better than what we got. Freeze Flame Galaxy as a whole is one of the most memorable galaxies from the original game. The Ice and Fire Flower are pushed to their potential as they are both used in different areas. For this ranking, we'll only be looking at the ice section of the galaxy, as this is a more openly designed area, with many different objectives all branching from the same starting point. I love how the Ice Flower works in Mario Galaxy. Having a timer on the power-up fits the level design, as you need to quickly make it across the cold icy waters. There's a few platforms that require the Ice Flower, and getting to the Secret Star demands you master precise movements with it. I love how many different routes you can take to get up to the top. Sometimes your Ice Flower can run out, but you can still find a clutch way to get up. Skating is introduced at the start of the level in order to catch the penguin, and I wish this was expanded on more, as I feel like no section requires you to go that fast. But it can help you if you're struggling with the platforming. Also, jumping after skating gives you so much more momentum to make some huge skips. For a game with a lot of banger boss fights, this is a bit of a letdown. Once you know what to do, a lot of the stage feels meaningless, as you only have to find the Ice Flower once, then just keep backflipping to destroy Baron Brewer. I mentioned how the Secret Star challenges you to be quick and concise with the Ice Flower, but the later half of the mission gets you to repeat the same principles with the Fire Flower. I think the Lava Planet missions utilize it a bit better, but with this one, it's mostly about going through the course quick enough to melt the snowmen in the way. Having Fire Flower also limits your movement a bit, so it can be pretty tense getting through the obstacle course. But getting to the peak of the mountain is such a peaceful moment. So I'm glad you get to come back here in the Purple Coin mission. Despite not having a time limit, the platforming and use of different power-ups makes getting all 100 coins tough. And when you get to the top of the mountain, Toad spits some poetry as you take a leap of faith to get the last couple of coins. This Purple Coin mission can be a bit tedious because it's hard to find all the coins, but man, I love the layout of this mountain, and the galaxy does a good job of exploring most of it. Then you remember there's a whole other part to this galaxy. If I were considering it all, this is a top tier galaxy, but for just the ice planet, it's lacking a bit of content, and the boss is way too easy for a game that usually has really memorable bosses.
I always do love revisiting Freeze Flame. Having Ice and Fire Mario as your selling points was always going to make you a fun galaxy to revisit. But Freezy Peak being a good or bad sandbox is not something I've really put any thought into. Is that something it does well? Well, from the outset, you'd certainly think so. The Freezy Peak section of Freeze Flame Galaxy has this recurring theme of going up. You know, you go up to fight Baron Burr, you go up to find that secret star, and even from its design, it conveys that perfectly. How do you get HoneyHive to feel like a bee kingdom? You have its subjects, but you also have a ruler too. How do you get get Beach Bowl to feel like a penguin's paradise? You make it one of the few galaxies that doesn't feature any bosses. And how do you make going up feel intuitive? You design it to be a mountain. And like with any sandbox worth its salt, exploration is rewarded in kind. You explore this back area, you get a life mushroom and a one-up for your troubles. You explore this area to the left, you have an alternate way to get to the second floor of the mountain. And if your intrigue takes you further, you end up exploring the other side of the mountain, which has Fire Mario for you. Complete with that same level of urgency. There's many an area where you have to carry Fire Mario to a snowman to be able to progress, in the same way that you'd use Ice Mario to ascend the mountain, all keeping within the theme. And with every galaxy that features a purple coin mission that doesn't have a time limit that requires you to explore a set area, it serves a perfect microcosm to the galaxy as a whole. If you liked exploring the galaxy initially, then the purple coin mission gives you a perfect excuse to get really into the weeds of it all. But if you didn't, then it just ends up being a tedious chore. Or you could just be Sea Slide and be fun initially, but really boring when you get to the purple coins. I don't know how they manage that. Overall, having really thought about this, I think Freeze Flame is a really good example of if you've done everything right, people won't be sure you've done anything at all. It does such a good job subtly communicating to you as the player what they expect that it doesn't really do anything to insist upon itself. Well, there are other sandboxes that do it better and have, better boss fights at the end of it and less painful purple coins. I think Freeze Flame is definitely one that should be appreciated. And while I haven't analyzed all of them the same way Kerplay has, I'm confident in saying it's definitely one of the better ones, right? Surely.
As the typical grassland first stage of the game, the prehistoric theme helps this course stand out a bit. But when you compare this kingdom to the rest of the game, it doesn't really have anything special to make it stand out. Instead, it's just a really solid collectathon level, which makes this a joy to 100%. Most of the moons are pretty simple as they're just kind of laying out in the open, but I gotta say, they get the most out of this area. So there are some hidden moons that I think are a good find. I like how they have the video game trope of hiding something behind the waterfall. Then they have another moon hidden behind the waterfall, but in a much more clever way. There's not too much puzzle solving associated with these moons, you're more just trying to find them. But the moons that involve the captures of the kingdom are the ones that require the most puzzle solving. It's not that deep, but you have to take the T-Rex out of its natural habitat to destroy certain blocks, or use the chain chomps to launch into the wall. After coming back to this level, the world is padded out with little challenges, and honestly, these are fine introductions to a lot of the mission types you'll see later in the game, but nothing here is a serious challenge. Compared to the last kingdom though, Captain Toad is in a much better hiding spot, and it takes advantage of the crazy moveset you have. I love using the T-Rex to launch up here, and that's also how I access the boss. If you can't tell, some of the footage is taken from when I speedran this game, so a lot of my perspective on the main missions comes from how fun it is to optimize. This boss is really fun in my opinion. I think it uses the capture introduced in this kingdom in a really clever way, and backflipping whilst trying to capture the chain chomp is a fun way to get better at this fight. Ultimately, I can't put this kingdom too high because it's not doing anything noteworthy here. I really like the theming and how easy it is to quickly complete the kingdom. No moon really jumps out as frustrating or annoying, so I still have a generally positive outlook on this stage.
Yo, I'm PM Jerry, and Mario Odyssey does not make sense.
I mean, you're just thrown right into the Mario vs. Bowser action. Mario is sent blasting off again, and now you're in a weird hat place. It feels like you're not meant to understand what the game is when you start it. Everything feels out of place, making it hard to tell what to expect from this game. Until you defeat a bunny, confusing you even more, and you head off to the Cascade Kingdom. Whoa. Waterfalls, more bunnies, and dinosaurs. And not whatever weird dinosaur Funko Pop love child that Yoshi is. Real ass dinosaurs. Which are weird in their own way. Just look at this scale. Why is the Triceratops skeleton so big? It's bigger than the entire T-Rex. But regardless, this is a bold declaration of what this game is. Fantastical locations with borderline endless secrets to find. Where will the game take you next? Who the hell knows? Perfectly setting the stage for an amazing adventure. And does anyone actually know what's going on with these dinosaurs? How did the T-Rex get on this elevated platform? What does he eat? How in the hell is the Triceratops this big, and how did he get up here? Are there more dinosaurs? I mean, there must be, right? I'm genuinely concerned about this. This is an Australia-sized continent consisting of dinosaurs. Does Bowser know this is here? Does anyone know this is here? Do they also reproduce through the stork system?
All right, stop. These are questions no one's ever asked. Huh. Someone should make a YouTube channel about answering questions like that. On an unrelated note, I've been PM Jared, proving that Cascade Kingdom is awesome and actually better than the next 2 levels that are about to be ranked. Trust me, Kerblay is wrong on this one and I'm right.
TikTok clock is a theme I would have never predicted Nintendo would use for Mario's first 3D outing. Most of the other themes are your standard Mario levels, but in 3D. This is the most unique theme in the game, and I gotta respect it for that. The idea of having the level speed change depending on what time you go into the level is really creative. As a kid, I thought it was random, but I'm pretty sure the toad next to the level explains it. If I just read obvious clues, this level could have been so much easier. I feel like having a time where the level is frozen does trivialize the challenge, but to combat this, there are some stars that are reliant on the level moving, and usually the mission's name will guide you on whether the course needs to be moving. In contrast, some stars can only be acquired with the level staying still. I find it interesting that many stars can be cheesed. Like this one requires you to go on the moving hand to get into this dent, but with a well-timed kick, you can just skip that and play the level in frozen mode. As a whole, there's many moments where you can skip the intended experience, and I think for a hard stage, that pairs well with this game's structure. Despite how frustrating it can get to die over and over again, the freedom in being able to get most stars with the level frozen makes this way more enjoyable than hard stages like Rainbow Ride. But you still need to practice mastering the level when it moves, as Stomp on Womp requires you to climb the entirety of the course with the level moving. This is the ultimate gauntlet of the stage, and with how many different skips are available, conquering this tower is a demanding yet fun challenge. So this is a hard stage done right, with enough control still given to the player. There are some path splits here to get up different ways, but this level does suffer from a problem that plagues a few Mario 64 levels, and that's present in these levels that have you climb in the same area more than once to get stars with not much variety between them. Tall Mountain is the most obvious offender of this, but I would say it's a worse problem in TikTok Clock, as so many of these stars are within close proximity of each other, and for the most part, these stars always have you climb through the same starting area. For this level, I don't mind it too much, but this is a very valid reason not to like this stage. Something I never realized about this galaxy is it's essentially a nod to Mario Sunshine. Probably because I hadn't played Sunshine by this point, but in retrospect, this has some great references to Sunshine, whilst also standing strong as a great Mario Galaxy 2 level in its own right. Both main missions utilize power-ups and mechanics that are unique to Mario Galaxy 2. Collecting the silver stars utilizes a lot of Yoshi's different abilities. You use the flowers to get up high, you shoot the crabs and spinies to break glass, and you even get to use the blimp fruit. Additionally, there's still so many areas to explore with other meaningful collectibles. But the second star is the highlight of the stage. You go on a huge adventure that requires you to explore the stage thoroughly to find a button to activate the cloud flower. But because the stage is made of water, you have to find a clever way to make it to the other island. When you know the answer to this stage, it doesn't take too long to complete. But discovering this for the first time was a great puzzle, and it utilizes the cloud flower in a new and clever way. The purple coin star is such an interesting take on the mission type. This time you're placed under a strict time limit, and you have to use Yoshi's dash pepper to dash on water. I struggled with this one so much, as you have to be extremely precise, but also quick. Because it's so easy to restart, I don't hate this one. And the green stars do a good job of exploring the rest of the course, so I don't even wish this was a normal purple coin mission. Each green star pushes the player once again to utilize the power-ups of the course to their best ability. You have to use Yoshi to find an out-of-reach area, then you get to use the dash pepper again to perform a well-timed jump. And the last one is a more difficult version of the second star. I really enjoyed this third green star, as it requires you to remember everything you learned in the previous missions, but push how well you conserve your cloud flower to maximize your height. Everything in this level builds so well off both established power-ups from Galaxy 2, but also ideas already built on in the level. Although this is a simple area, a lot of the puzzle solving here is really clever, and I find this level charming in how it references an old game, but is able to transform it into something of its own merit. This is a great way to end Galaxy 2's ranking in this video. Because Galaxy 2 was much more focused on a more linear experience, there were only 2 levels that qualified as Sandbox. The average rank of these 2 levels is 35 out of 65, and because both these levels were in B tier, Mario Galaxy 2 ends up in B tier as well.
Do you like Mario Sunshine, but you don't like Mario Sunshine? Well, good news, because Starshine Beach Galaxy is here. A quite large galaxy with a lot of fun content held within. Want to be thrown around by Piantas? Destroy a Lakitu until the end of time itself? Jump around with Yoshi? Don't lie, we all want that. You get to explore all the furthest reaches of the level within the main 2 missions, even the underwater section, which, despite being small, still has a fair bit to it. This galaxy's focus on power-ups also feels fitting, the ones shown off being reminiscent of the different flood nozzles. Also, how can you hate a place that lets you swim with Yoshi?
As the last kingdom of Mario Odyssey, this ends the game in a spectacular fashion. The build up to the final battle is an excellent showcase of many of the best captures. Also, some captures that were rarely used but really should have been. The constant threat of lava raises the stakes, and the choice of captures at the start don't make the level too risky, but gradually the path gets more treacherous, and I love how in a lot of these sections, you can choose to go faster by not capturing anything. Something you probably won't notice on your first playthrough of the Moon Cave is how many out of the way secrets there are. They do a really good job of hiding these, and they're some of the more memorable secrets in the game. It is a bit sad that Bowser is essentially the same as his Cloud Kingdom variation, however the additional hats added to each phase makes this way more challenging. I'm sure this was really challenging the first time I played it, but because I've played through this game so many times, I can only see it from a semi-decent but also kinda trash speedrunner's perspective. So ultimately, this isn't as difficult as I'd like. But all is forgiven as the escape scene makes this one of my favorite endings to a Mario game. It was kind of the same feeling when Bowser is revived in New Super Mario Bros. Wii. This escape scene is honestly better in my opinion, because you get to play as Bowser, the whole area is crumbling, boulders are coming out of nowhere, there's even a 2D section with the most legendary shortcut that saves like 2 seconds, but I always go for it. Then collapsing the columns to finally escape is such a fitting set piece for the end of the game. I also want to pour a drink out for the ones who have fallen down this hole. I've been there before. It's rough, buddy.
That's rough, buddy.
Honestly, if the gameplay wasn't enough, you're also rocking out to one of the best songs in the game, and it just puts me in the right mood every single time. So the main storyline of this kingdom is really solid, but because the kingdom does open up later, we also have to consider the overworld. This isn't as compelling as the escape sequence, but in all fairness, it's pretty hard to reach that level. However, a lot of these moons do feel like filler content. Most of the moons are repeated missions we've seen a lot of. The Koopa minigame comes back, but with no new interesting spin on it. There's a moon where you take a frog to another part of the map, only this time it takes like 5 minutes to get there, and there's essentially no challenge to this. There's a glowing thing that flies away type moon. Technically I haven't talked about a level that has this yet, but it's appeared in other kingdoms. The music note challenge is just kind of showing off that long jumps are longer now. All up, there's a lot of whatever missions here. Not to say I hate everything here, but for the moons that are decent, they're mostly just collectibles in different spots. Still fun, but just not too memorable. I do like platforming in the low gravity, and a few moons take advantage of this. So I can at least say there's a bit of a gimmick to this kingdom, but outside of the fantastic ending, most of the moons don't do enough to make this overworld too special. As much as I tend to hate on water levels, credit where credit is due. This is a neat concept for a water level. The execution has some stars that feel a bit underwhelming, but as a whole, this level does a lot to capitalize on the core gimmick. Much like TikTok Clock, the state of the level is affected by how you interact with the painting. I didn't even notice this till a YouTube video pointed it out, but depending on what level you jump into the painting at, it will correspond with the stage's water level. You can also pass through the diamonds happens within the level to change its height, and to get to the top of the stage, you don't even need the water to be raised. But raising the water causes the wooden boards to start floating, which allows you to get to some of the floating islands. Additionally, some things can only be interacted with below water level. There are some stars that require you to hit question blocks, so a lot of the puzzle comes from finding a way to this section without using the water to get you up there. The express elevator is so clever in this regard. You need the water level to be at its lowest, yet to activate it, you need to get to one of the highest points in the level. This star requires all sorts of thinking, puzzle solving to figure out how the elevator works, strategy to get to the top, and fast-paced platforming to ride it in time. Another highlight of this stage is discovering the abandoned city. This is another one where you need to do some puzzle solving to figure out how to get to the city, or where it even is. To access the cannon, you have to utilize the level's core gimmick, as you need the wooden boards to find the pink bomb. Launching to the right spot may take a bit of trial and error, but it's so satisfying when you nail it. And when you get to the city, the mission isn't even over. You get to explore the town as you find all 8 red coins. There's also an invisible cap star, but let's just pretend that doesn't exist. I like how there's one star that can be done incredibly fast if you know about the painting mechanic. As for the most part, I would say the stars do a good job of ensuring you have to switch between different water levels. The 5 secrets has many spots near the bottom where you need the lowest water level, but there's some secrets at the top where raising the water level helps you get to out of reach areas. The only thing that lowers my opinion of this level is the few stars that don't really engage with the level's core gimmick. The first star requires the wooden boards to be raised, but shockingly, if you know where the teleporter is, it bypasses the whole challenge of the mission. And the invisible cap star, whilst technically having an interesting build up, feels like a wasted slot when the red coin mission already exists. I also don't really enjoy swimming around in this level. This is a really minor nitpick though, and just my personal bias, but as a whole, I respect this course for its interesting gimmick and the execution that explores it very well. If you asked me a couple years ago, I would have told you this is my favorite Mario 64 stage, and I still sorta see it with my nostalgia goggles on. But this is a level that has some huge flaws that hold it back from being any higher. The main reason I adored this course is because the journey to the top was so exciting to me. This feels like a gauntlet of different linear challenges, with many sections still challenging me to this day. There are some unique enemies here. The purple chucking dude can make any section feel more tense, but it doesn't even compare to the evilness of this monkey. He takes your hat and taunts you. Honestly, it has no effect on anything, but screw this monkey for being an evil bully, apparently with wizard powers as well. Anytime Nintendo adds a spinning log, I'm all for it. This is such an anxiety-inducing section, but by this point, you've probably already had experience with it. I'm not going to go over every obstacle, but I think it's fair to say this mountain does a great job of escalating the tension through some genuinely difficult obstacles. But the main issue with this stage is the lack of variety between these objectives. The first 2 stars are repeats of each other. Granted, the second time you get to exact your revenge on the monkey, but I can see how this feels like a wasted slot, especially when the 5th star is just getting to the top of the mountain again. And I guess the 4th star is also getting just about to the same spot. The thing is, you are climbing this mountain a lot, and if you fall off near the top, it can be pretty tedious to climb everything over and over again. But personally, I just don't see it as tedious. For one, I like the initial climb and I'm more than happy to repeat it, but secondly, there are some shortcuts to make retrekking more engaging. Navigating the viney cliffside is a great shortcut that skips a lot of the hardest obstacles, and you can optimize your movement to pull off some less than intentional skips. I'd say these 3 missions are a bit too similar by the time you get to the top, but the mysterious mountainside is one of the standout missions in the whole game. Any star that features an additional level inside it tends to be my favorite. Having a more challenging slide level is the perfect type of challenge, as I love all the slide missions in this game. Despite this being a very linear level, the secrets tucked away in plain sight make this a course all the more memorable to me. Blasting to the Lonely Mushroom is a mission that requires you to find 2 really well hidden secrets, that being the pink bomb and the teleporter. I think if you go through the red coin mission beforehand, there's a good chance you could have accidentally stumbled onto the teleporter. Otherwise, I'd say it's really well hidden. Even though I haven't been considering the DS version of Mario 64, that is the version I grew up with, and I remember the only way I could figure out this star was by using the bouncy box. Turns out there's multiple different ways to get here. This is a core reason why I love Sandbox levels. If you can't figure out one way, try what you think might work, and you'd be shocked how many times it works out. Ultimately, this is a course where I could understand the hate, but for someone who really enjoys the stage and its build up, the multiple paths to take, the well-crafted mysteries, and the level of player freedom, I can't help but love this course despite its flaws. When we talk about the best hub worlds in gaming, I'm sure Peach's Castle is one of the first thing to pop into gamers' minds. Mario 64 was probably one of the first games to nail every aspect of its hub world, as it introduces a playground for beginners to get welcomed into the game. The garden is a simple area with nothing much going on at the start of the game, but as you complete more missions, you come back here with more secrets to discover. A huge moment is when you drain the moat, forever changing the landscape and giving you a second entrance to the castle. Within the castle, each area is set up with mini hubs in mind. You have a couple of sandbox levels on each floor, and once you collect enough stars in this area, you can access the boss stage. Despite it being set up like normal video game progression, I think these areas off the beaten path add to the charm of this area. The courtyard being out the back adds to the immersion that this could reasonably take place in the castle we see from outside. The basement connecting to the moat outside also contributes to the immersion of this world. But what really fleshes out this hub world, and the main reason why it's included, are the secret stars. These come in a variety of forms. Some are as simple as talking to a toad, whereas some encase a whole level, and these secrets have become iconic. Gazing into the light beam to unlock the wing cap, the secret slide in the window, the tiny hole in the side of the wall. Just discovering the hiding spots of these levels can be a joy, but you're also rewarded with a bite-sized challenge that's unlike the rest of the levels in the game. However, the actual levels here is why, despite the magic of exploring Peach's Castle, I've had to place this in the middle of B tier. There's a lot of secrets that are just boring. Talking to the toads is fine, they're not really hidden, but hey, I like getting a free star, I can't complain. The water level is a waste of time, and this mission in the clouds is one of the most frustrating things. If you don't know to ground pound, accurately jumping from cloud to cloud becomes really precise. Despite knowing that, you still have to be way too precise with some of these coins. Like, I'm not amazing at controlling the wing cap, but I think this is a bit unfair. But what's even more unfair is when you fall, you return to Peach's garden. This makes completing the mission a nightmare, because it's the furthest point away from where you respawn. An odd thing about some of the secret stars is that they're located in different levels. Like, to unlock the metal cap, you have to find a portal in Hazy Maze Cave. For some reason, collecting the red coins here counts as a secret star, and so do all the red coins in the Bowser levels. However, I won't count these as it's a part of different levels. I think when you look at each star individually, nothing really stands out as spectacular, aside for the slide levels. I love those. But you also have some weird levels here where I don't really know what to think of them. In short bursts to break up the main gameplay, it's really refreshing, but as individual stars, they're not too special. It's more the mystery surrounding Peach's Castle that I'm attracted to. Getting to the top of Peach's Castle doesn't unlock any mission or additional star, but being able to get to this area that seemed unreachable and meeting Yoshi is just neat. The wonder this game elicits is why the hub world is so memorable and why this area will stick with me forever. I never thought one of my favorite levels would end up being the ghost house. I really hate these levels in the 2D games as they're way too confusing and have a lot of stupid secrets hidden in them. And I guess this level carries out some of the same principles, as it is a maze to navigate with no clear direction of where to go. The secrets hidden here are very fair in comparison, and having this mysterious house in 3D lends itself to more natural puzzles instead of just walking walking through walls. Going on a ghost hunt and finding the red coins are both great ways of exploring all the different rooms. Some of the rooms can be a bit unclear what their purpose is, and that coupled with the creepy atmosphere can give an unnerving feeling. Like, what is this eye and why is it just staring at me? But for the most part, each room will have a purpose or a puzzle to it. The red coins are equally spread throughout the mansion, and the way to obtain these range from calm to absolutely dreadful. It seems everything in the house is out to get you. The books and chairs are flung at you, the coffins somehow attack you, the piano is childhood trauma, and I can't get over how creepy the eyes are. Coming from someone who thinks owls are the scariest animal, the eyes have always creeped me out. I used to always hate the missions where you killed the boos, cause trying to punch them is really inconsistent, but learning to just ground pound them makes this fight so much easier. This does trivialize the fight a bit, especially when you already did the exact same thing before, but in a much more diverse mission, but I guess it does give the basement a purpose, so that's good. What's wild is you actually fight Boo for the third time. This is definitely the best version of the fight. In retrospect, I feel like finding your way to the rooftop is kinda bullshit. I mean, this secret stuck with me from when I did it as a kid, but honestly, I have no idea how I figured this out. Even when you jump onto this platform, the camera doesn't allude to there being a ledge at the top. But even when you do know about this, it takes some real finesse to get up there, and I appreciate this tough challenge. The fight with Boo being on the balcony makes this a tense battle, but the real anxiety moment is getting the star. I always overthink this, then the slope physics mess me up. Please tell me this isn't just me. The final star of the level faces us against a giant eye, and if you don't know how to kill these, this can be pretty intimidating, as you're pretty much trapped in this room, forced to find its weak spot. And it honestly makes sense that running around it would kill it, as you're dizzying it out. So I feel like this is a somewhat interesting fight, at least for the first time. The only star I haven't mentioned is my favorite one from when I was a kid. I don't know if it's deep enough to still be my favorite, but solving this one was so satisfying to me, as it seemed like a real mystery. As an adult, I can come back and appreciate this for a different reason. Being able to cheese this is even more satisfying, and is one of the many reasons I love how open the game is. Overall, this is a creepy stage that nails its aesthetic. The focus on the mysterious house makes all the stars within it feel like an adventure to complete. Nothing here is that bad, aside for a few annoying design choices, and maybe the fact you have to fight Boo 3 times, but I still love this one.
Bro, I love Big Boo's Haunt. If you thought you had balls approaching the giant piano, the devs had the balls to use the musical equivalent of Mr. Krabs running for the song's main melody. I've always been a fan of levels that have lots of little rooms with mini challenges, such as the mystery houses in Super Mario 3D World. Each room has something cool and quirky inside, and it's the one level in Mario 64 that I actively enjoy re-exploring as an adult. Climbing to the top of the mansion also feels very rewarding. The precarious long jump from the balcony onto the slope as you try not to slide off is just really fun to me. Out of the 15 main levels in Mario 64, this is probably my favorite one.
On my first playthrough of Sunshine, this level stuck out to me as the most fun, as a lot of the missions center around cleaning up goop. And like I mentioned before, I'm a fan of virtual cleaning. But come on, we all know the highlight of this course. Let's not dance around it. The Goopy Inferno is one of my favorite Sandbox missions ever. When I first came across this, I tried a lot of stupid things that didn't work. But eventually, I clawed my way through this level and found an answer I was certain was not the intended path. But that's the magic of this level. I watched a video with all the different ways of tackling this, and it amazes me how many different creative solutions there are to this. There's clearly one intended path, but it's pretty far from the start, and most people tend to experiment before they get to this area. And I don't know whether that was intentional, but that's how it should be. These moments where you're talking about what you surely thought other people would experience, just to find out their brains work a completely different way, these are the moments that make Sandbox levels so enthralling, and just attempting all the crazy paths to take here was such a joy. I also really enjoy the mission where you're playing golf with the chain chomps. Cleaning up the goop is satisfying and crucial, as you need to allow yourself the space to fling these chomps. It can be a bit janky, but I enjoy bouncing the chomps around the level. I also like how Flood reminds you not to abuse pets. It's okay when Mario does it, but don't try this at home. Whilst not fully a cleaning mission, I do enjoy the shine where you clean all the piantas. It's just satisfying. I don't have much else to say about this one. On the topic of not having much to say, the Piantissimo race is so boring. A lot of these races take paths that have like no variation to them, and it feels like a waste. Dragging this chain chomp into the hole is a mission that does not excite me in the slightest, especially when the chain gets all janky on you. Honestly, this whole mission feels janky, and I don't really look forward to it. Now, the Chuckster mission is pretty infamous, and I don't get why it's so hated. It can be a bit annoying to accurately line up the Chucksters, but it's definitely not an awful experience. There are some sub-areas in this game that are way worse, and also the adventure of finding the secret is entertaining. Utilizing the mushrooms below with the aid of Yoshi is so fun. So overall, this is a mixed level. On one hand, it has the best shine in Mario Sunshine, and then a bunch of fun missions around the village, typically to do with cleaning goop. The red coin mission is also a fun exploration of the rest of the course. But on the other hand, the other missions are quite forgettable, or if they are memorable, it's not for the right reasons. I do think the good parts of the stage more than outweigh the mediocre parts, hence why I think this deserves B tier. For someone who's not a fan of ice courses in Mario, it's wild that we've had 2 ice courses in B tier, and there's still 2 more to come. This course does one thing to make it stand above the other ice courses, and that's the igloo. I love all the Mario 64 stages that have little areas within a level. Finding and getting to the igloo is a challenge I greatly appreciate. There's an intended path, as you can see the route laid with coins, but there are definitely multiple ways of getting here if you're creative. Once you get into the igloo, it's massively expanded on, as now it's an icy maze. I don't know why they changed this in the DS version, because this is one of the only instances where I like the invisible cap. It can be a bit tricky to find your way back to the star, and you're on a timer, so you have to be quick. I'm surprised that for the rest of the course, there's only one star that involves the mountain. All the other stars are spread out around the bottom. Some of these can be really easy to obtain. The one in the ice sculpture is a mission that I guess isn't just lying there in the open, but it takes a total of 10 seconds to clear. Well from the Freezing Pond is another star that doesn't take too long to get, but I don't dislike this one as it's a unique challenge trying to use the flower enemies to bounce over the pond. You also only get one attempt at this, so the pressure is on. The red coins also require you to take this path, then you get to skate around on the shell, which is a blast. I wish the enemies and wind gusts served as more of a threat, cause there's quite a few things here, but they never tend to have an impact on any mission. It would have been cool if you had to avoid more enemies whilst riding the shell. But I can't say I hate this star, cause it's just not a big deal. The last mission to be featured on the ground is a refight with the bully. As you'll see later, I think this fight has been done better. So as a refight, it's a bit disappointing it only takes one hit to kill this dude. I still really like this type of boss, but it can be very anticlimactic. Now, it kind of makes sense there's only one mission to the top of the mountain, as it's not as long as I remember. It's definitely tense going up those tight platforms, and getting past the snowman's head is the most iconic moment of this level, aside for maybe the igloo. This penguin is a dickhead. He purposely tries to juke you out, and when you're on an icy platform, it's hard to react quick enough to stay behind them. But it's funny that whilst researching for this video, the photo in the Mario wiki has Mario standing on the penguin's head. I didn't even know that was an option, and it makes me wonder if people had different strategies for getting past this. Even though this is a pretty easy course to beat outside of the igloo and penguin shenanigans, I really like the bite-sized missions on display. Other courses before this have more memorable missions, but as a whole, I feel like the simplicity of this course actually boosts its ranking. Not a single star here pisses me off, and although some of these stars are brain dead easy, there's still challenge found with some of the more iconic stars. So So ultimately, having simple stars doesn't detract from the standout missions of this course. Mario Sunshine, the previous game before Galaxy, was fully focused on delivering the beach aesthetic. So it's surprising that one of the only sandbox levels in Galaxy is a beach stage. Like, surely they got the most out of this idea before. But I have to say, the new mechanics introduced in Galaxy seem really well fitted to this stage. So despite this being a lot smaller than most Sunshine levels, for the game, it feels like a very expansive level with every area taken advantage of. The underwater section, while small, has so many missions packed into it. Some of them aren't that deep, like the one where you just steal a golden shell from a penguin, then return it to the big penguin who's like 10 meters away. But there's also a mission where you collect the 5-star chips, and these are pretty well hidden. I do have to say that collecting these showcase how finicky the swimming can be, but as long as you're going forward, you shouldn't have too much of an issue. You only start to see the cracks once you have to turn around really quickly, which honestly seems like a flaw in almost every game I've played. The underwater mission I really like is the secret cabin. This is such a fun secret to discover, and it leads to one of the more challenging linear planets in the game. Apparently this was so good, it had to have its very own galaxy in the sequel. And if you didn't think it was hard enough, there's a fast version of this stage that is so rage-inducing. Luckily, due to my rules, I won't be counting that as a part of the stage. The purple coin comment is so fitting for this galaxy. This is one of the times where I don't mind there not being a timer, as this is a really relaxing galaxy, and I just want to swing around on the vines having a good time. These vines feel like they have a very in-depth physics system, so it's weird this is the only level they appear in, but I can't lie, just swinging around on them is very fun. This whole star is very relaxing, outside of the coins that require the spring mushroom. Whoever decided to put those coins on the edge of the map, I hate you. The secret star of this map ended up being my favorite in a lineup of stars that really has nothing bad. This one tells you nothing about where it is, and I definitely thought the secret would be underwater. It's partially underwater as you have to steal a shell from there, but then you have to navigate the course with limited movement to make it to this point. Before, I mentioned how the cataquacks had a better use later on, and this is it. Pairing the ice flower with the cataquacks is a genius idea. Controlling the cataquacks is necessary in order to obtain the ice flower. Then you're pressured to go fast in order to complete the obstacle course. Then you combine those two ideas and you're given this section where you have to create a path through this dangerous lake to guide the cataquack to the star. You gotta be fast because of the time limit, you gotta be cautious around the ice spikes, and you have to be deliberate with how you do it, because the platform you make is not only for you, but also the cataquacks. I honestly wish there was a whole gimmick around this idea, because it's so creative, and they only gave us a sneak peek of how crazy the level design could be. But to end the galaxy off on such a fantastic note leaves a good taste in my mouth. The vibes of this planet are immaculate, the secrets here are fun and well thought out, and the bad stars are forgettable at worst. This is one of the more consistently good levels in all of Mario Galaxy, and it's a great way to end Mario Galaxy's run in this video. Galaxy 1 focused a bit more on having expansive levels, so it makes sense it outlasted Galaxy 2. However, the average rank comes to 38 out of 65. So despite having a longer run than Galaxy 2, on average Galaxy 1 is just a tiny bit worse. I'd say this is mostly due to Seaslide Galaxy being the third worst course, because if we were to remove it from the ranking, then Galaxy 1 would have an average of 32. But that's just the way the cookie crumbles. In the end, I'll still give Galaxy 1 a B tier.
Ah, Beach Bowl Galaxy. It has water and Gringills. Good night, Tri-State area. As a big fan of Mario Galaxy and probably the biggest glazer of Mario Eels, I'll be the first to admit that Beach Bowl Galaxy isn't that great in terms of its levels. Like, stealing a shell for an entire mission? Come on game, challenge me. But with that said, whenever I play this stage, I'm not really playing for the levels. Rather, I'm just staying for the vibes. With every other galaxy feeling so lonely and full of nothing but outer space, Beach Bowl is kind of a breath of fresh air, being a genuine lived-in place with an assortment of things to just mess around with. You can stay on land and chill with the penguins, or go for a swim and chill with the penguins that can breathe underwater somehow. You can swing on this vine over here. It serves no gameplay purpose, it's just there, and my pea-brain thinks it's more fun than it should be. There's coconuts here for some reason. They also serve no gameplay purpose. The Mario Galaxy games don't really give you that many places to play around in, but when they do, I usually like it, and Beach Bowl is no exception. Even when the stage gives you set paths, I still think they're pretty good. The Cataquack planet is surprisingly creative, and it's nice to see the Tox boxes on the Stone Cyclone. Nintendo thought this thing was good enough to bring back in Mario Galaxy 2. Make of that what you will. Overall, yeah, I really like Beach Bowl. I swear guys, I'm not biased. Not the best level-wise, but it's just nice to chill in. It's Penguin Paradise even. And with that, my section is finished, and I must return to my home planet. Back to you, Kerblay.
As much as I usually hate ice-themed levels, due to how slippery everything can feel, this kingdom has so much variety to it, and it only has a few areas that annoy me. There's a lot of moons required to finish the main storyline of this kingdom. You get to go through 4 different challenge rooms, and these are some great challenges, with each area also having an additional hidden moon. Ice Cavern is the only lackluster area, especially considering you can skip the entirety of this room pretty easily. But aside from that, each room has a unique challenge tied to it, with all the hidden moons being a fun side objective. This all builds up to the highlight of the course, the Bound Bowl Grand Prix. This course offers so many subtle shortcuts, and just getting the perfect launch off a slope makes this fun to always improve your time. Defeating this opens up the rest of the kingdom, and this area has some cool things. Most of the moons feel very bite-sized, with exploring being the main way of collecting them. There's also quite a few moons that involve challenges we've seen before, such as the timer missions, taking notes, Lakitu fishing, ground pounding random spots, even the Koopa walking minigame returns. Granted, I really enjoy how they use the slippery ice in this context. I know I complained about how I don't like slippery physics, but when you come up with a unique challenge built around the ice that develops on the last minigame in an interesting way, I'm all for it. I think this kingdom is home to the easiest Koopa freerunning course yet. I guess if you don't know about this win riff, there's a bit of a challenge here, but otherwise it takes under 20 seconds to beat. I also kind of forgot there was an expert course for the Bound Bowl. I've 100%ed this game, so I must have done it before, but I totally forgot about this. I love doing this challenge as it does force you into a lot more awkward situations. You do have to master the controls and learn when to do a big bounce and when not to. Just remembering this course and a few of the other moons, I decided to up this level's ranking a bit. When I think of coming back to this kingdom, no moon sticks out as a drag to complete, aside for the boring repeated missions. But all up, it's really easy to jump in and complete this kingdom hassle-free. I feel like the main overworld maybe hands out a few too many easy moons, so therefore this kingdom does feel a bit forgettable outside of the main story. For the most part, this is an absolutely beautiful hub world. Unlike Peach's Castle, I can't say it's as magical or immersive, but it makes up for that with the sheer amount of content that's available here. The town area is very densely packed, which makes you feel like you're always rewarded at every turn. Some of these shines are really basic stuff, like watering the ground or talking to this random dude. But for the most part, these shines are either hidden really well or have some unique mechanic tied to them. There's one that utilizes the turbo nozzle to break through a door, an out of place button that can only be accessed with the rocket nozzle. These are pretty simple, but I like any mission that uses the underutilized flood extensions. What's even more impressive is that they tend to build on these concepts with missions that are even more hidden and complex. Getting to this pipe requires the rocket nozzle, and it almost feels like this should be out of bounds, as it's around the corner in a place that seems like dead water, but you have to jump between the palm trees to get there. Finding the secret develops on the rocket nozzle by getting you to find the correct path yourself. It's not as simple as finding the highest point and jumping once. I wish the challenge inside was built around the rocket nozzle, because there weren't any challenge rooms that ever used it, and this is just such a weird nothing type of mission. The turbo nozzle secret might not be as hidden as the last one, but it makes great use of the nozzle. It's just a short platforming challenge that tests your timing to do massive gap jumps. Overall it's simple, but still pretty fun. The There's 3 shines that involve cleaning goop off of towers. I know these all require the rocket nozzle to get up, but in my first playthrough, I didn't know how to do it, so I just used Yoshi to do it. This is a really fun challenge though, and if the movement in this game is crazy enough to allow you to do it, then I only see it as a benefit. The West Tower bell also locks the shine inside it, which challenges your level knowledge to find a way in. And the way to get in makes sense if you're been paying attention to all the small details of this world. So for everything I've described so far, this is an amazing hub world that challenges you to use all of your abilities, while still giving you the freedom to mess around. Even some of the ways you enter levels are creative, but there are a couple things that hold this stage back. 2 absolutely awful sub-areas really bring down the experience of completing Delfino Plaza. Firstly, there's the infamous pachinko machine. If you don't believe Mario Sunshine is a janky game, first of all, you're delusional. But it's okay. All you really need to do is play this level. The physics that you've gotten used to are just thrown out the window. Sometimes when you try to hover, you just get stuck on invisible walls. Sometimes you land on a peg and then you just go flying in random directions. Sometimes you get stuck sliding against the wall and can't get out of it. Sometimes Mario goes so incredibly slow down the slope. And every now and again, everything works out in your favor, and you start to have a little hope. But then the game rips that hope away from you and tells you to get fucked. This is the closest I've ever gotten to beating this shine, and unless I need footage of me getting this someday, it's the closest I'll ever be. I'd say the pachinko machine is one of the most frustrating in the entire series, but it doesn't even compare to the next one. The lily pad mission is so bad, it's unbelievable. To get to the pachinko machine, you just need some good timing with this boat, and it lines up pretty well whenever you spawn in. To get to the lily pad mission, however, you need to find Yoshi, give him the right fruit, find a secret tunnel to get him to this island, wait for a boat to come by, wait on the boat until you get to this post, jump across, wait for another boat to come, wait on the other boat to get to this island, and spray the goo. To do just this part takes 4 minutes. It's so freaking tedious, and I don't get why they added such a boring build up to this mission. What's even more annoying is that you have to keep eating fruit so Yoshi doesn't disintegrate. Imagine getting to this point and because you didn't refill Yoshi's stamina, he just dies on you. That would be absolutely devastating. But maybe it was a blessing in disguise, because now you don't have to deal with the god-awful lily pad mission. The water here for some reason is insta-kill. You have to control the lily pad like you would with the boat, and the boat was pretty trash to control, but at least it wasn't featured that much. This is arguably harder to control as the stream just keeps pushing you forward, so it's hard to quickly adjust the boat. What's even more diabolical is you have to jump at the end to get one. I hate this shine so much, and getting a game over is a really likely occurrence. And if that happens to you, you have to do the whole thing over again. If I ignore this shine from Delfino Plaza, it's a really good hub world. Probably the best of any game I've played. But I have to consider this level as a whole, and unfortunately, this and the pachinko machine weigh this level's ranking down a lot. Like, the lily pad shine has to be the worst mission in any Mario game, and having that in an otherwise perfect level just doesn't allow me to give this S tier.
Delfino Plaza is a wonderful area and is, in my opinion, the finest hub world that 3D Mario has to offer. The place just oozes good vibes and perfectly embodies that summery atmosphere that runs throughout the whole game. Then there's the fact that it is super satisfying even just to move around this place. The combination of Sunshine's incredibly tight controls and Delfino Plaza's level geometry means that getting from point A to point B never feels stale. Doing side flips, spin jumps, parkouring off all the roofs of the building, belly sliding along the ground, diving into the manholes, moving around feels so fluid in every sense of the word. There were so many intricate little details added in as well, like how it would gradually get brighter with every shine that you collected, or how you could see some of the worlds off in the distance, like Pinna Park or Rico Harbor. It's a big part of why Isle Delfino feels like an actual world, giving an illusion of interconnectedness. Thanks to Delfino Plaza, the levels don't simply feel like individual, separate areas, but rather smaller parts of one big whole. It's one of my favourite locations in any Mario game and, well, in any game altogether, to be honest.
So before we get into the A tier courses, I want to go over a few of the levels that I considered adding to this video, but ultimately decided against it. I already think I included some things that are a bit of a stretch for the sake of including as much as I could, but I think for a lot of these, they have a bit of merit, but you can let me know if I should have included any of these. So yeah, in the end, I can see the case for a few of these, especially because my rules are a bit vague, but if you think any of these should have counted, I'm sorry for your loss. But let me know why they should have counted in the comments. However, if I did have to include them, this is where they'd fit in the list so far. Okay, with all that waffling out of the way, let's get back into some of the best sandbox levels out there. If there's one thing the Mario series is good at doing, it's transforming mundane locations into some of the most creative and imaginative levels. A harbour does not come to mind when I think of a good level for a tropical island, but what's pulled off here is so fascinating whilst getting the most out of this idea. The only bad thing I can say about this stage is that it has a boss refight within 4 missions of each other. For the first time, this is a really interesting fight, albeit a bit gruesome, but there's something so satisfying about tearing off this creature's limbs. I now see why Flood had to give the warning, because it's really fun to abuse animals in this game. Doing the same fight twice, however, is not that fun. The only new move is that Blooper will spin around, and I'd be lying if I said it did knock me off a few times. But for actually taking down this boss, nothing has changed. I think the standout mission for this course is the Cage Shine. This is a gauntlet of precise platforming challenges where you have to switch between different nozzles to both traverse the course and knock enemies away. At the end, you're also given the rocket nozzle in the most anxiety-inducing areas. You don't have to use it, and that was definitely my downfall, but it can be useful for avoiding the frickin' evil wind enemies. I love how many different ways there are of getting up, and there are some major skips you can make if you're confident with this game. But because the platforms are really skinny, you gotta be pretty skilled to land correctly. This also makes the Shadow Mario mission pretty entertaining. Spraying him whilst running along these narrow platforms is very nerve-wracking. You want to be careful, but still get him before he runs out of the way. It's still pretty easy honestly, but a unique spin on a tired formula. Much like the Blooper fights, there are 2 missions devoted to Blooper racing. One of them involves completing a race course, and the secret star is completing it under 40 seconds. The neat thing about this is based on your skill level, you can choose the appropriate Blooper. Something slower with more control, or something faster with less control. I usually go for the middle Blooper, but if you want that good time, you'll probably want the pink one. You also get to reapply your Blooper skills in a different setting, as you collect all 8 red coins. This one is really difficult. You're given a pretty generous timer depending on what speed you choose, but the trade-off for going slow is you don't get many redos if you miss one. Once again, I like going for the yellow one as it's still going pretty fast, so it's decently easy to get the first couple of coins quickly, but the ones near the end are super tight fits. I always hate getting this one because the camera pans away and I'm just expecting to be dead straight after. Because if you run into anything, you die immediately. But I think this mission is designed even better than the race, because there's a lot more reason to choose any one of the bloopers. The Yoshi Shine is the only one I sorta hate. Not because of how the mission is designed, but because I suck at controlling Yoshi. This is such a weird mission where nothing is explained that well. You just have to experiment a lot to figure out how to get over to the platforms. And once you finally do, you're not rewarded with a fun platforming section. I think the fact that spraying the fish makes them disappear permanently was a bit too unfair, as you have to resort to spin jumps, and I find these way too inconsistent. Obviously, Obviously I'm bad and there's something I'm not getting right about it, but it really does feel inconsistent with how some jumps just get absolutely botched. And this mission showcases my frustrations perfectly. The secret shine is an interesting case. Nowadays I can spin jump and hover over there, it's not that hard to get to. But I remember first playing this level and being so confused on how to get up that high. The spin jump does trivialize a lot of the more difficult platforming stages, but like I said before, I'm not that good at it. Ultimately, I'd have to say this is one of my favorite secret stages, and I'm glad they chose this one to come back in Mario Galaxy 2. It's way harder in this game, but you can also breeze past this once you get confident with jumping and diving. So yeah, I'd have to say this is one of the more consistently good Sunshine levels. Turning a harbor into a jungle gym of different obstacles is an idea only Nintendo would nail. I love the missions that don't focus too much on this area and are spread around the course to involve multiple different mechanics. The repeated boss and Yoshi Shine are small letdowns in an otherwise fantastic level. Aside for 1-1, I'd argue Bob-omb Battlefield is the most iconic level in all of Mario. This is a level that so masterfully introduces players to the Sandbox level structure. Everything here guides the player to experimentation. It doesn't feel too overwhelming. You're definitely gonna die a bit if this is your first 3D game, but none of the missions here feel unfair in their design. Even for a first level of a game, this isn't just good because it's a great tutorial. It's also able to stand out against a lot of Mario 64's levels due to how diverse each star is. If you think about it, each star here is an introduction to a different type of mission that's consistently built upon throughout the game. The first star introduces you to bosses, but it's also the furthest point from the beginning. So this mission should get you somewhat familiar with the controls and more familiar with how the area is designed. By this point, you'll have to deal with avoiding enemies, jumping past obstacles, and you may have even discovered some of the secrets throughout this path. Everyone knows about the teleporter in the side of the hill, but what's crazy to me is I only recently in the last 5 years discovered there's another teleporter in this level. And this makes me consider how many more discoveries are out there waiting for me, as playing through all these levels for this video has already opened my eyes to how many alternate solutions there are for some stars. Nowadays, this boss is incredibly easy due to how slow it is, but for beginners, it teaches them to move around enemies and pick out their weak points. Although these are kinda rare in Mario 64, the second mission teaches you about races. So you have to follow the same path you just learnt, but try and hone in your skills to do it more efficiently. Once again, the NPC is pretty slow, so you don't have to be a speedrunner to beat this one. The third mission is a very common thing within Mario 64, and is the crutch of a Sandbox game. You're given a vague message about where the star is, but nothing is handed to you. There's not an instant obvious path available, but through the title, you'd have to assume you gotta find a way to this island. If you've unlocked the wing cap, you can couple it with many cannons scattered throughout the course and find your own way to the island. But if you haven't unlocked the wing cap, that strategy still remains the same, but you're more limited with the cannons you can use. The fourth mission type is a simplified version of finding the 5 secrets. There are way better versions of this where you actually explore the map. This one feels a bit watered down as you're mandated to use the wing cap, and all you need to do is shoot at the rings. I feel as if the wing cap had the most potential within this game, and not many missions really get anything out of it. It's best utilized when it's not necessary for the mission, and rather a way to skip certain sections. So due to how restrictive this star is, it's the only weak mission in this level. The red coin mission is an objective that's present in almost every level, and I really love these missions. It's really just the developers spreading out a bunch of smaller collectibles throughout the level, and allowing you to fully explore the course. You can't really go wrong with one of these unless you're Dire Docks. But this course has a good spread of coins in really well hidden places, or areas that require some precise movement to obtain. The last mission of this star is absolutely iconic, and it's more in line with the third star, as this is a puzzle where you're not given direct instructions on how to beat it, but you're guided as to where it is. You've probably seen this star a lot, and if you're curious enough, you might have already wondered how to get to it. For a new player, this can be quite intimidating, as they made the chain jump kinda scary. The only issue issue I have with this star is that ground pounding has never been required up until this point. However, it is an essential part of the game, and considering you don't have to do every mission in order, you can come back to this one later. After all these years, Bob on Battlefield still stands tall as one of the greatest video game tutorials, for introducing players to all the different types of missions, but also just providing an open playground to experiment in. With all the new secrets I keep discovering in this course, I'm sure there's a plethora of moments that have made this level special for a lot of people. And I love seeing videos of people's reactions to this level, as although I can't play this level for the first time again, I can see the awe of discovery through other people's eyes. I'm surprised to find out Bianco Hills is my favorite starting course of any game in the series. If you've seen my playthrough of this game, you'd probably be surprised I don't hate every level in the game, as almost every course has one thing about it that makes it incredibly frustrating. Thankfully, the first level in the game is devoid of anything that pisses me off, yet a lot of elements that make me excited to jump back into this one every single time. I feel like this stage is a great showcase of how expansive the levels are in this game compared to Mario 64. Each mission can drastically change. The bosses have full cutscenes and are much grander, there's multiple sub-areas, the level feels as if there weren't many technical limitations stopping Nintendo from making this as fleshed out as it should be. Getting used to FLUDD is pretty difficult in this game. I'm still bad at using the hover nozzle to turn around. So for the first mission, you're faced with a giant wall, and this requires you to get used to using the hover nozzle. The possibility for crazy movement is available once you've mastered the game's controls, and getting over the wall is really simple once you've mastered it. But because the ropes are here, you don't have to do anything too crazy. The other half of the mission gets you using the spray nozzle, which is a mechanic that's tied to almost every level in the game. Anytime you're not sure about something, you probably just have to spray it. There are a lot of interesting things that come out of this mechanic, but just cleaning up goop has to be one of the more satisfying applications. It's very simple, but with all the different methods of spraying water, it never gets too boring. Much like Rico Harbor, this level has the same reoccurring boss. PD Piranha made his debut in this level, and what a debut it was. I still struggle with this boss because of how many different elements you have to keep track of. You have to pay close attention to his moves, you gotta clean up the goop so that you're not attacked, you can't just wait around in one spot ready to spray him because he moves his head around. You gotta be fast but careful with him. For the first boss in the game, this is way more complex and does a great job of building on both the nozzles introduced. I'm not even mad there's a boss refight for this stage, as they drastically changed this one, and both of them are fun in their own unique ways. The second time we fight him, he's actually moving around the stage, and we have to shoot him down by getting close enough. I think this makes good use of the town area, as you can climb certain houses to get a better view of where he is. His attacks are also a lot more fierce, like he's swinging his head around if you get too close, but is also throwing tornadoes at you, and you still have to take out the goop and the creatures in it. For a stage 1 boss, there's a lot of things to keep note of, but they all can be solved through using FLUDD, which makes this boss fight so intuitive. The mission before has you collecting red coins in the same village, and this is just a classic platforming challenge. I feel like for pro players, it's really easy to get up on the houses, but there's different ways of getting to the coins if you're less experienced. You can move the windmill platforms by spraying it in order to help you out. There's some points where you can use the type ropes, and you'll also need a wall kick at certain points. This shine is just an all-round great demonstration of the potential platforming has in this game. The 8th shine is another red coin mission, and these tend to be some of my favorite shines in the game. You get to use the type ropes a bit more, but this time on a much larger scale. The rocket nozzle helps you avoid the wind enemies, but getting hit or just going off the course can be deadly. The stakes are definitely higher in this mission, as it's the final one of the stage, but your reward for completing it is getting a shine next to Dorito Goomba. So I guess it's all worth it in the end. Both secret levels are done right. You probably see both these points from different missions, as long as you have a watchful eye, yet getting to them is definitely out of the way. For the first one, there's a couple of different routes you can take to get here, all of them requiring some skillful platforming to get up there. I'd like to say the first secret is easy, but all these areas are incredibly difficult without FLUDD. The Dirty Lake secret stage is even more challenging. Firstly, getting here only has one solution, and you better hope you're good with the spin jump. Side note, why did they give you the turbo nozzle right before you lose flood? I thought maybe this led to a secret somewhere else, but I just straight up don't know. Inside though is some really difficult platforming that requires a bit of analyzing to get through, and not choking at the last second. Honestly though, this is one of the better secret levels in my opinion. Every mission that's here not only does a great job of exploring the stage, but showing off all the different uses that Flood has. More than most stages, it feels like you're rewarded for experimenting with platforming. There's so many different ways to complete shines, so coming back to this level always produces new experiences, and it feels so satisfying to master playing this level. Unfortunately, that was the last Sunshine level to appear in this video, and one of 2 levels to just make it to A tier. The average score of Super Mario Sunshine was 28 out of 65, which leaves Sunshine in B tier. Even though I have a love-hate relationship with this game, I think it's evident I'm more sided towards love. There are a lot of things that really piss me off in this game, but once you come to accept this as a bit of a jank fest, the greatness of this game really shines bright. Lethal Lava Land might be the most sandbox level in Mario 64, and you could see it as a bad thing, because this level is just a bunch of flat platforms over lava, but I only see this as a benefit to its level design, and I think the addition of another level within it makes up for the lack of verticality. Most of the stars here are pretty simple to collect, and the small scale of this level is mostly to blame for this, but the variety of different ways to traverse this course makes just getting from point A to B fun. You can platform through the middle of the stage, or just damage boost your way across a big gap. Having tools like the wing cap and turtle shell add to the freedom that this level already encourages. This is probably the most useful instance of the wing cap. Like, no mission requires you to have it, but instead it can be used for some huge skips, or just general platforming if you have a good enough setup. I mentioned how I prefer the bullies in this course as opposed to the ice bully. I think having a bigger platform with lava completely surrounding it makes this fight just that extra bit harder. And something about kicking the bullies is so satisfying in this game. You can also bait them in and then get them when they're on the edge. So yeah, I really like the bully fight, and this is why I think the second fight is even better. I get that you're essentially doing the same fight twice in a row, but when you have to deal with 3 tiny bullies at the same time, it makes it even tougher, and I think it's a pretty fun boss to manage. The red coin mission is the only weak one in this level. Contrary to the footage, I rarely get hit when doing this, and most of the time you don't have to be careful when getting these coins. This of any stage would really benefit from a more spread out red coin challenge. So many of the islands further out don't have a proper use in the level, and if the shell and wing cap were available in that mission, it would be so effective. I'm so sad they went with a sliding puzzle instead. I've mentioned this before, but I am a sucker for tiny levels found within a stage. Although there's like no immersion in this level, I like to pretend the entrance is only the very top of the volcano, just barely peeking out of the lava. When you enter this area, you're given a split choice. One side has an auto-scroller with some stressful jumps in between, and at the end, you'd assume there's no way you could fail this jump, but the stress can really get to you, and although there were way harder jumps before, something about how simple this is always gets me tripping up. The other path is way cooler, however. It feels like a lava temple as there's traps set along a narrow path and some tense jumps near the end. I have to say the volcano segments aren't as flexible as the rest of the course, but if you were longing for some action-packed set pieces, this course has you covered. And that's why I feel like this is a complete course. You have entertaining bosses, the freedom to choose your own path, a lot of tools to mess around with, and still some challenging linear set pieces, all packed into a genuinely engaging course. The fact that this stage starts off by showing you a map goes to show how confusing this level can be. And I mean that in a good way. Even though it shows you the map, I always forget the exact path to a lot of these stars. So I feel like this is the ultimate puzzle stage. And despite the map showing you the general layout, there's so much more waiting for you to discover. This is a stage where you really need to pay attention to the clues the stars give you. And for the first star to be called Swimming Beast in the Cavern, low-key gives you nothing. But from the get-go, you're never given instructions on where to go. I think depending on whether you go left or right, you're gonna have a completely different experience to someone else. From just wandering around, I think the first 2 stars you might find are the swimming beast or the red coins. The thing is, if you go left, there are a bunch of different paths, but you'll probably end up in one of these rooms. The red coins are probably the most obvious to find, and it's a weird challenge. Using the arrow platforms to move around is like an auto-scroller determined by you. I can't say the challenge here is that intense. It's more of a test of patience, especially considering the rest of the coins are set up like a traditional auto-scroller. The other star you're likely to find is the first one. Once you go down the elevator, the objective starts to become more clear, but I love how the answer still isn't handed to you. I mean, whose first thought is to hurt Dory to get the star? A psychopath, that's who. Every other mission here is really well hidden or requires a long path to end up in the right spot. Your first time going through the toxic maze will be really confusing. The poison water is killing you, and unless you've unlocked the metal cap, you'll probably want to stay out of this area. The funny thing about that is, the metal cap is unlocked in this level, and this being a part of the stage allows me to appreciate its use in this level a bit more. Cause finding it in itself is a puzzle, and the different ways you get to use it are all in service of making this a very mysterious but fair level. Once you get in the poison maze, it makes finding these secrets just that extra bit easier. Granted, they're both the same solution, but it's already a maze navigating this area, so having the same principles you can apply to different areas helps you solve this confusing level. The metal cap was my least favorite cap in Mario 64, and this level doesn't solve the issue I have with it, but the applications of it work within the confines of this level. Usually the puzzle is to do with finding the right area to use it, as opposed to sinking underwater and walking. And when you're put on a timer, it actually does create a sense of urgency to find the right area, because if you don't, you're gonna get hurt. There's another metal cap star that's just walking underwater, but at least this time round, that's not the entire challenge. You do have to chain together a bunch of long jumps to make it to the star, and this can be pretty difficult honestly. So overall, the reason why I love this stage so much is due to the mystery of it. Nothing is given clearly to you, and I feel like all the solutions are fair enough. There's even some skips that make this a really fun level to explore and experiment with. Some missions are a bit lackluster when you know the answer, but the mystery of this stage is such an engaging aspect that I can brush that aside. Cool Mountain is the king of ice courses, and that's due to its emphasis on slides. I'm a sucker for all the slide stages in Mario 64, as you've probably noticed, and this course is pretty much made up of slides. There's a slide on the outside of the course with some alternate routes to ensure that the level isn't just a big loop, but there's also a more challenging slide on the inside of the mountain. This is where 2 of the missions take place, and I think out of all the slides in Mario 64, this has the best layout. It's a windy path with many points that are hard to stay on, and that's especially the case for when you race the big penguin. It has a cool hidden path that's alluded to very well, and because the course folds over itself, there's plenty of opportunities for huge shortcuts. I feel like the Lost Baby Penguin mission is the most iconic, mostly for this reason, but I see the actual delivery as the most exciting part. Don't get me wrong, abusing animals is fun in Mario games, but there's so much flexibility in how you get the penguin down, and pulling crazy moves like this is why I love these missions that limit your movement. Pretty much any path you take is gonna be challenging, but if you know the layout well, taking a leap of faith is very rewarding. Another star that encourages this experimentation is the wall kick star. The intended path is still very risky, like getting to this island and firing accurately in a cannon is no small feat. That's why I like to use the level's enemies to just casually float there. This is actually a tactic I learnt from playing Mario 64 DS, as you could use Luigi's backflip to have the same effect. I just recently tried it out this time, not knowing if it would work, but I was rewarded for trying something new. So that's pretty cool. The platforming course can be a bit precise, but wall kicks are consistent throughout the game, so it's a fair and fun challenge. Once again, the red coin mission does a fantastic job of exploring the entire course. If you haven't gone through all these extra paths outside the slides, this will require you to do that. I think this red coin sorta alludes to there being a teleporter here, but if you don't know about it, I can see how this level might feel impossible. Now, there's only one star I dislike, and I genuinely don't know how it works. I feel like even if I knew precisely how to get the head to follow me, this would still be frustrating, as getting too close to it hurts you, and you would end up not being able to guide it. Also, sometimes it feels like you've guided it perfectly, but it just runs away. Even if I knew exactly how this mission worked, nothing about this mission uses the slides in an effective way. It's just tedious having to go down the slides slow, but not too slow. But that's a small blip in an otherwise amazing course. I'm so surprised all these snow and ice courses have done really well in the ranking. This is the final one, as it has the best gimmick associated with it. The slippery slides make good use of an otherwise annoying gimmick. I feel like ice stages that demand accuracy come off as annoying rather than challenging. So swapping the challenge out for fast pace and less accurate platforming was a genius decision, and overall the layout loops back around nicely to make the slides a great addition to the course, but not the entire focus. So, I've done a couple of re-ranks for this video, and this is the level that has shifted around the most. A part of me hates this level due to how punishing the quicksand is, and when I played this, I died in almost every possible way you could. But when it came time to actually talk about the missions and the level design, I couldn't really think of many bad things. So, this is one of the hardest courses in my opinion, but when I look at it from a distance, it's also one of the best. This level is filled with quicksand, and it makes a lot of the objectives really difficult. Getting to the 4 pillars is what caused the most deaths for me. You have enemies firing projectiles at you, but to help you out you have the wing cap. And this is really helpful, because it stops you from constantly having to go back and forth through the same areas. But to triple jump at the right area and land safely is what makes this level so deadly. It is a good trade-off though, so all the deaths are in fair game. I would always slip down the pyramid, and it's all surrounded by quicksand, so that's just instant death. But if you look at the freedom this provides you, there's no downside here. The course has a lot of things that can be deadly if you don't use them effectively, but it also creates so many funny memories, and eventually getting to master these tools makes this course so replayable. After it took me 3 attempts to get to all 4 pillars, I accidentally did this. But once you do finally master it, there's even more to this mission. You fight the Hands boss, which I believe was the inspiration for the Sand Kingdom boss fight. This is a tough fight where you have to be cautious of the quick attacks, then also quick with your reactions to attack back. There were some times where I got a bit impatient, and this boss will punish you for that. But there are also so many different attacks here, so if you're caught off guard, this can be a really punishing boss fight. Although I died 5 times trying to do this mission, it stands out as one of the most memorable ones. Thankfully, this is the 4th star in, so the stars before this do help you explore the stage beforehand. Getting the star from the bird telegraphs how the pillars actually work, whilst also giving you other options to get up, such as the wing cap and tornadoes. Shining atop the pyramid also gives you different options on how to get up. I love that you can use the bouncy box at the start of the level to bypass the whole obstacle course, or you could use the turtle shell to surf over the quicksand right to the pyramid. Much like Lethal Lava Land, the 3rd star showcases a vertical obstacle course within the level. This feels like an ancient temple, even more so than the volcano. The traps here are way more threatening, but having different ways to tackle each obstacle makes this whole section tough but fair. Getting to the top is a really fun test of all your abilities, but if you can think outside the box or exploit this level's secrets, there's so many different ways to complete this mission. Because getting to the top of the pyramid is so fun, I don't mind repeating the same obstacle course for another star. The problem comes from completing the star once you get up there. You kinda just have to make blind jumps onto these platforms. This is by far the worst star in the level, just because it's designed so stupidly. But that is the only bad aspect of this course. It even has a fun mission leading up to it for most of the way. Collecting the red coins adds even more secrets to parts of this course, and for once requires you to interact with the toy box maze, which if there weren't 1,000 different ways to avoid it, would be a good threatening section. So maybe getting the 4 red coins in the sky isn't as engaging as the other red coins, but it doesn't make this mission too intolerable, because the other 4 do a good job of allowing you to explore the stage. I feel like a course that can make you rage this much, but is also extremely fun and memorable, is a rare thing. The frustration I have with this course comes from how bad I can be at Mario 64. But with all the ways this level encourages player expression, I can't be too mad. I can only appreciate how consistently well designed every area in this level ends up being. The choice to reveal Mario Odyssey with this course was a bizarre one. It's exactly the type of unpredictability Nintendo are famous for. And just in concept, this seems like a novel idea that wouldn't mix that well with the Mario franchise. But this ended up being one of the standout kingdoms as it pushed Mario beyond the same predictable level themes he'd previously explored, while standing out as one of the most complex levels Mario has explored. The vertical playground of the city is something we've never really seen in other Sandbox levels, and the major emphasis of effort this kingdom received did it favors, as you can really feel the sense of admiration the team has for Mario's past. The streets are littered with Donkey Kong references, there's countless references to old school Mario games, the underground theme being especially apparent. Pauline is brought back to the center of attention after a very long time, and the festival sequence is just a huge celebration of Mario's past. The storyline you follow to get to this point is one of the largest in the game. A lot of kingdoms after this point are very large in scale, but not necessarily in their main progression. The Metro Kingdom acts as the halfway point of the game, so the story this kingdom delivers is just as big as the final kingdoms of the game. You start by trekking through the bug-infested city during a thunderstorm. The build up to the boss is very threatening, as these bugs attack you, whilst you still have to avoid bottomless pits and tanks. You then have to scale the largest tower by going through a challenging linear segment. I feel like there's not that many vertical platforming sections in this game, so it's always special when one comes up and is very satisfying. The Mecha Wiggler has to be my least favorite boss in this game. The thing is, for the most part, I wouldn't say it's awful. There's a bit of waiting around, and I find it a bit annoying to use the aiming controls to hit the pods. Also, getting hit by these things when you're just trying to aim for the body pisses me off so much. But this is also coming from the perspective of someone who likes to speedrun this game. So when you can't complete this in 2 phases, it's not the end of the world, but from my perspective, it's really annoying to have to go through more phases of this fight, especially when it feels like you're close enough to the pod, but it just doesn't count. I'm sure there's some valid reasons to like this fight, such as it being very unique, but I always get way too frustrated playing this and can only see it as that. Thankfully, the next parts of the story are all focused on platforming, so I have no complaints. Finding the band members is a great way to familiarize yourself with the city layout, and I know there's a mission later on where you help a depressed man, but maybe we should be helping this dude out. There's a few puzzles and platforming sections underground, which you have to complete in order to experience the universal highlight of this game, the New Donk City Festival. The New Donk City Festival is a moment where you just can't help but smile. This celebration of Mario's origin is the perfect feel-good homage. It's not too challenging, but a great halfway point for the adventure. When the rest of the kingdom opens up, this is when you're treated to some of the best objectives in the game. Despite this not being the largest kingdom, everything is so densely packed to ensure there's something happening around every corner. A lot of the city is expanding, so there's active construction all over the place. This, much like New Donk City Festival, is a reference to the Donkey Kong arcade game, but also gives some great additional challenges outside the city. There's some moons hiding within the construction, but I prefer the restrictive timer missions. Some of these were way more challenging than most timer missions. There are still quite a few moons that are just hanging around, but because this is such a vertical level, finding all these can be a real challenge. There are so many different ways to gain height here. You can use objects around the buildings to gain height. There's also a lot of power lines to make traversal between the towers more fluent, and the easiest way to get up is just wall jumping between 2 buildings. I think a collection of missions that get the most out of these traversal methods are the seed missions. This is a genius switch up they pulled, as instead of finding the seed throughout the level, you're given the seeds and have to find the pots throughout the city. I'm not sure why this wasn't done in every kingdom with some verticality to it, because normally once you find the seed, there's no inherent challenge tied to getting it back to its pot. But when you flip the order, it still tasks you with the puzzle of finding the pot, but then you have to figure out how to get it there with the limited moveset. With your full moveset, this would be easy, but this makes you consider all the elements that make up the level and can definitely lead to some really creative solutions. There are 2 transportation-based missions in this world that are both pretty fitting for the location, and they end up being some of my favorite missions here. I mentioned that the scooter was very underutilized in Mario Odyssey, but the free parking objectives almost make up for that. Traversing the city to get your scooter up onto these parking spots is a hilarious application of the scooter. The first one is pretty straightforward, but getting to this spot requires some out-of-the-box thinking and a comprehensive understanding of the kingdom's layout. I remember really experimenting to figure this one out, and the solution is such a aha moment that I won't spoil it. The other mission is the RC car. You're introduced to the mission through capturing this dude, and to this day I suck at controlling this. But that's what makes the minigame version all the more fun to constantly improve on. For such a simple racetrack, there's a lot of fun to be had. In the end, Rule 4 really hurts this kingdom's ranking, as there's a ton of interesting sub-areas. I mean, almost every building you pass can be entered, and these lead to a huge variety of entertaining sub-areas. I almost considered including this one, cause it's so cool, and who doesn't love playing 1-1 for the 700th time? Throughout this amazing collection of sub-areas, I can only count the regional outfit area. This is a great use of the wires we were using to traverse the city, as you're put in a more precarious situation where fast thinking is rewarded. The ending area where you have to quickly move between each point reminds me of the clear pipes, but you can be a lot more efficient using these. Like I said before, there are a heap of moons scattered all throughout the city, and this is what makes everything so densely packed. Every turn has a new hidden objective waiting for you. Some of my favorites are Captain Toad, surprising this dude with the clown outfit, creating the Mario logo, the trash moon, climbing to the top of the map, the Gerda sandwich, and of course, my bench buddy. For the most part, everything here is a great time, but the same cannot be said for the jump rope mission. The moon for 30 jumps is doable, but 100? That's too much, man. This was the last moon I collected to 100% this game, and I had to watch countless videos to somewhat help me. I know there's a glitch to cheese this minigame, and I wish I knew about that at the time, because I just kept jumping then throwing my hat to do 2 skips in 1 jump. Thankfully it's done and I never have to do it again, but man, this moon sucks so much. I think when the game first came out, this kingdom was such a shock. Everyone saw it as the best kingdom in the game. After a bit of time, I don't feel that way, but I still wouldn't blame you if you thought this was the best kingdom. The novel idea of taking Mario and putting him in a realistic area is very bizarre, but the level design is able to take that idea past ironic, and resultantly, this feels like one of the most densely packed kingdoms. Its verticality leads to some great moments for not only platforming, but puzzle solving and replayability. However, the loss of sub-areas and the awful boss are the only things that hold the stage back from S tier.
One of the more interesting aspects of Odyssey is the way in which it combines freeform exploration with linearity. Broadly, because Odyssey enforces a sequence in which you must complete its kingdoms, the mere order of the kingdoms themselves are used to construct the sense of Odyssey for which the game is named after. Such is the case with one of Odyssey's best levels, the Metro Kingdom. It comes after the first hiccup in our journey, an ambush and crash landing. You might expect a reprieve when reaching New Donk City, but no such luck. It's been besieged by a mechanical wiggler. What follows is a particularly involved sequence, where you rush across the rain-battered metropolis, swinging across girders and beams to reach the tallest building. Afterwards, Pauline requests you help her re-prepare for the city's festival, little more than an invitation to roam around the city's corners. It's easy to get distracted. The Metro Kingdom may not be the biggest level, but it's certainly the most dense. Small rooms and challenges and minigames abound in these bustling streets. The level concludes with a bombastic celebration, the result of your perseverance. It is, in effect, the game re-establishing the status quo it had interrupted 2 kingdoms prior. And so Metro Kingdom fulfills its purpose, an electrifying welcome to the second half of Odyssey.
Womp's Fortress may just be the quintessential Mario 64 level. Everything that makes Mario 64 so significant is done perfectly in this level. This is a course that at first glance seems like a linear path, which much like Tall Mountain, would get repetitive climbing the same area. But this level excels with its sandbox design, as every mission gives you multiple choices in how to complete it. Fighting King Womp allows you to be introduced to the main path. This is a big step up from Bob-omb Battlefield, as now there's a lot of moving elements and dangerous enemies. There's pits you can fall into, and the enemies are much more imposing this time round. My favourite thing about fighting King Womp is how easy it is to cheese it. I'm not even into speedrunning this game, but so many aspects of this level make it engaging to optimize. And this is not a hard trick, it's just really satisfying to pull off. Once you start to realize you don't have to follow the intended path, that's when this level really gets good. I mean, the layout here makes it so easy for anyone to forge their own path. Getting to the top could be seen as repetitive, but if you're creative with how you approach this stage, it can be a blast. The red coin mission showcases all the neat hiding spots tucked into this course. Things like interacting more cautiously with the obstacles, using the thwomps to your advantage, getting to places that seem impossible to reach, and some risky platforming above the course. Instead of just being spread throughout the linear path, most of these are off the beaten path, or require different thinking. The 3 stars we're left with are all golden examples of why Mario 64 is such a special game. These are the stars that give you a vague clue, but don't give anything away. Blast Away the Wall is one of the best examples of this, as you have to determine which wall to blast and how to do it. And this is a unique mission that isn't repeated throughout the game. There's other stars that require you to launch out of a cannon, but the objective is never as hidden as this one. Fall onto the Caged Island is another case where a star has multiple solutions, and I feel like pretty much every plausible idea is rewarded. It's fair to assume using the owl was the intended way to do this, but for some people, just jumping into a random tree might not sound obvious. What's most obvious is long jumping from the top of the tower, or maybe you think about launching from the cannon. All reasonable solutions to this open puzzle. I absolutely adore this star, as it really opened my eyes to how malleable this game is, and how you don't need a moveset as complex as Mario Odyssey to have your own ingenuity. Whilst not having as many solutions to it as the last star, Shoot into the Wild Blue allows you to discover your own path. I feel like side flipping and wall kicking is the most satisfying answer to this problem, but any way you get here is still pretty fun. Ultimately, it makes sense why this level was chosen to be remade. It's so small and compact, yet the freedom it provides allows for each star to feel satisfying. Just navigating the course makes it easy to want to constantly improve on your routes. And like I said before, I have no interest in speedrunning this game, but this level has so many routes that break the intended path. So for someone who doesn't really care about this and just wants to play the level normally, maybe this level isn't as genius. But in my perspective, this is a simple course with enough hidden complexity to make it infinitely replayable. It took until doing this ranking to figure out that this was my favorite Mario 64 stage, as I've never really considered the elements that make the perfect level. But after going through each stage and picking apart the aspects I like and dislike, I realized this stage excels in all the elements that make a great sandbox level. I like the stages that have a central gimmick that can be changed depending on how you enter the level. Wet Dry World and Tick-Tock Clock are more prevalent examples of this, as they have effects with more than 2 outcomes, but the core gimmick here is so strong that I don't really care, and the level does a great job of requiring you to switch between both sizes. For instance, some sections of the level are much easier to reach when the course is shrunk down, but the actual mission will require the world to be inflated. For Pluck the Piranha, you get a clearer sense of how to switch between perspectives and how it can change the stakes from peaceful to vicious very quickly. The world is much easier to traverse when everything is shrunk down, yet the designers distinctively ensure most objectives and interactive elements of this course are accessed through the massive world. Things like the cannon and turtle shell can only be obtained in the massive world, and both these elements play into one of the best stars in the game, period. Like all good levels in Mario 64, this stage has an objective where the title of the star is a brief guide as to how to complete it, but the actual solution is way more complex. This is also a mission that encases a smaller level within it, so right off the bat, that's two things I absolutely adore about Mario 64. After a bit of exploring and no luck finding any red coins, I think it's pretty fair to assume the random hole in the side of the mountain might be a bit suspicious. If you've been exploring the smaller map, you definitely would have noticed this unused section, but even when you think you've cracked the code, you still have to find a way up there. This is by far my favorite part of the mission. Getting to just the right spot is pretty difficult, as the slope makes staying up here a challenge. But thankfully, there are many different ways to get up here, and your imagination is your only limit. I tried using tools like the turtle shell and cannon, but accurately lining everything up is a challenge. So if you're better with platforming, there's still multiple different ways of getting up here. This is a common highlight I've talked about in most of the best Mario 64 stages, and I feel like with the exception of Thwomp's Fortress, this course gives you some of the most creative possibilities. No matter what option you choose, there's fun in discovering a unique way to get up, and then also executing it just right. What's even more impressive is that this star isn't even over. I've died so many times trying to collect these red coins, but in that case, you're given an opportunity to try and find another method to this place. So I don't find it anywhere near as frustrating as dying at the top of TikTok clock. So that star is the highlight of the stage for me, yet the other stars are all still fantastic adventures. This is the only other course to have a Koopa the Quick race, and despite him not being that quick, I feel like the boulders almost act as his replacement. Overall, it's nothing too special, but the shorter course and constant obstacles make this a solid mission. Finding the 5 secrets in the tiny world is a very intriguing mystery. The fact that they all stick to the same theme is something I only recently realized, as in Wet Dry World, the secrets are kinda random. Some of them are in boxes, some of them are achieved from pushing big boxes, but with this mission, they all stick to the theme of small holes. It feels kinda lucky that there turned out to be the perfect number of secrets for this level, but I have to assume the level was designed with this in mind, which is honestly kinda genius that the stage still flows very naturally, to the point where it's kind of a surprise trying to find all these holes. Like, it's not obvious the cannon counts as a secret, as it's such a natural piece of the level. It makes it obvious where the secrets could be if you've been paying close attention to the massive world, and it's cool to see a star fully take place in the small world, as you mostly use it to set up an objective for the massive world, or to bully Koopa the Quick, whatever floats your boat. The thing I like about these stars is that if you know the course very well, you can skip a lot of it to get to the peak, but it doesn't feel cheap that I'm skipping everything. Instead, it feels rewarding to quickly navigate this course using its core gimmick, especially considering I get to avoid the giant fish. And besides, there's still plenty of reasons to use the massive world, so it's not like you're missing out on anything. Even though there's 2 stars that involve climbing to the peak, it avoids the issue of being repetitive due to this skip. And the second time you climb up here, there's a great puzzle centered around the main gimmick. Once you get to the boss fight, it is a bit underwhelming, but just getting to his hideout is very memorable, so I can excuse it. But overall, I wouldn't say the stage is flawless. Once you know how to do all the stars, this course does lose a bit of the wonder you first get from playing it, but ultimately, I don't really care. The level's gimmick is so creative, and being able to exploit it once you know the course better is what makes coming back to this level so exciting. Breaking the intended player experience is something I've praised to no end in this video, so it's no surprise the level that rewards this the most ended up being my favorite. Unfortunately, this is the end of Super Mario 64's impressive streak. For the first game in the series, I'm genuinely impressed with how well it holds up. Its average rank was 26 out of 65. Due to how many levels made it in high A and B tier, I was expecting a bit of a higher rank. But we do need to remember Mario 64 is home to the 2 worst levels in the entire series, and in the end, that's what cements it into A tier. Most of the 3D Sandbox levels are based on themes already established in the 2D games. The Luncheon Kingdom, however, is such a unique setting that takes the theme of food but twists it into an extremely colourful and creative spin on the idea. Having this be one of the biggest kingdoms in the game was a great idea, as the potential that's explored here goes beyond a neat concept and into one of the best sandbox levels in the series. Elements like the goo being a massive boiling pot and essentially acting as lava make this a dangerous late game stage, whilst also giving great utility to the level's main capture. It's very useful for traversing around the stage, but it also couples as a great tool for puzzle solving. Puzzles such as lighting up the torches, jumping onto tomatoes to cover the land, using the lava cannons to launch across the stage, heating up pots to get a moon. All different uses that in certain contexts can be immensely satisfying to figure out. One moon that's extremely creative in this regard is when you have to heat up this pot. In general, the times when you have to find a path from one area of lava to another are really fun. It turns the idea of the floor is lava on its head and resultantly is extremely gratifying when you figure it out. The boss is another great showcase of how interesting this level's capture is. Running around to avoid the projectiles makes great use of the fast movement. Then jumping between the vomit, I guess, utilizes the vertical jump of the lava bubble really well. The final hit is extra difficult to get close. It feels like you're just barely inching closer each jump. It's very intense, if a bit broken at times. Fittingly, the other main capture of this kingdom are the forks. This is better used in some sub areas, but it's a fun way to gain some height, and considering this is one of the more vertical levels in the game, the section near the back of the level allows you to go wild with flinging yourself up the course. And for once, I can say they chose a really good path for the Koopa free running to take place. Having a vertical platforming challenge with multiple different paths, utilizing both the kingdom's captures, makes this the most action-packed race in the entire game. Constantly improving here is really fun when there's so many shortcuts and interesting movements to be made. The Hammer Bros and Fire Bros aren't as involved as the other captures, but they really got the most out of all the captures in this kingdom. I love the moons where you have to take these captures out of their spawn points. Navigating the rocky terrain with this odd moveset is a joy, and the cheese blocks require you to really explore the course whilst trying to avoid the insta-kill lava. You also have the same sort of design with the Fire Bro, but this time you have to light up the torches. And this happens all over the course, so finding these irregular paths to the same areas you've already explored transforms this level. Using the Fire Bro to do this occurs at least twice, but when I saw these unlit torches in this section, I just assumed I had to find a way to bring it here. But that is not the case. You really have to analyze your surroundings, as the answer is crystal clear once you do. But there were so many different cases of this same mission, and when you change the environment, it gets you really experimenting with all the elements that make up this course, instead of just using the same captures in different applications. Now, outside of the captures being an integral part of this stage, the larger scale of the level means there's a bunch of regular moons scattered to cover every inch of the kingdom. This includes out-of-the-way hiding spots, finding the golden turnips and getting them back to the pot, Goomba missions, music notes, a visually trippy 2D section where the outside level is actively distracting you, some new puzzles that haven't appeared before, and the usual timer missions. Side note, this timer mission has got to be the easiest one I've ever seen. Please let me know if you've ever failed this. I promise I totally won't make fun of you. All this fun platforming and creative puzzle solving is wrapped into one of the most gorgeous levels I've ever seen. From first glance, this probably doesn't look like a food-centered level, but it is in its mechanics and level design. It's incredible that so many ideas come together under this theme, and they all work cohesively to be as entertaining as possible. Making this one of the larger kingdoms was the right call, and if I were to include the sub areas here, it would be all over, as this has my favorite sub area in the game. But what we're served here is more than enough to satisfy me. I feel like I've been bashing water levels all throughout this video, which is a fair call. I freaking hate water levels, but that's mostly due to how slow and awkward swimming can be. Mario Odyssey remarkably solved this issue with the introduction of captures, and this level, whilst being the biggest water level in the series, uses the captures to open my eyes to how fun water levels can actually be when they're at their best. Cheat Sheeps were a capture already introduced in the Lake Kingdom, but they are everywhere here, and most of the moons that are laying around in the ocean can be obtained by using them. These are moons that are hidden in the rocks, music note challenges that require quick movements, and spots that require shaking the Joy-Cons to activate. There are some spots where you need to leave the capture to use Cappy, but because there's so many Cheat Sheeps all around you, the gameplay is never slowed down dramatically by these moments. Also, these moments lead to some much needed variety in the underwater sections. The 2D area is a standout segment where entering from different points changes how you complete this moon. The timer challenges in this level also require you to leave the capture. Some are as simple as just swimming from point A to B, but because this is a later kingdom, it's at least not brain dead easy. Then there's other areas that trap you in a deep trench with one of the scariest enemies in a Mario game. Like the ills from Mario 64 were pretty scary, but they went the route of making these absolutely horrifying. And that's especially the case in this linear section where they keep jump scaring you. For the most part, I'd say this level is designed in a way to make the underwater sections as engaging as possible. There's always something going on, and the rocky terrain leaves many good hiding spots for moons. But I don't know what they were thinking with the seed missions. I mean, these were already slow when on land, and like I mentioned in the Metro Kingdom, they become kinda tedious when there's no obstacles getting in your way. But the underwater seed challenges take that to the extreme. There is nothing exciting about going 3 kilometers an hour with almost no enemies getting in the way. What's great about this kingdom, however, is the fact that the water segments don't even take up much of the total moons. The second main capture of this kingdom is even better than the Cheat Sheet. The amount of utility they get out of spraying water is crazy. It's so simple to control, but as you've seen before, there's a lot of challenge squeezed out of this idea. In a way, it's reminiscent of Flood, as there's some sections where you have to clean up goop to reveal the level. You can use it to hover around, but you're still limited by the amount of water you can use, which is both a good restriction for platforming and puzzle solving, but it's most effective when fighting the boss. Already the build up to this boss is a great spread of various objectives. I love going up the hill with all the spiky balls coming at you, and later on in the kingdom, this idea is expanded on in a lot of exciting ways. Dodging these when you're a stack of Goombas is thrilling, and ending the Koopa free running here whilst using the dash peppers jacks up the intensity of this already difficult section. Getting to the top of the stone pillar showcases how versatile the Gushins can be. It's a simple puzzle, but it opens you up to the idea of using different platforms further away from each other to inch yourself higher and higher. And this technique is used cleverly for some of the moons, if you don't cheese it some other way, that is. Getting to the top of the lighthouse is one of the only linear segments in this kingdom, and the tension of swimming past these ills is heightened due to how nerve-wracking it is. But it's definitely cool getting to use the Cheat Sheep in a linear setting. Once you uncork all 4 screws, you get to fight the main boss of the stage, and this requires you to apply all the lessons you've already learnt throughout the stage. You have to conserve your water by boosting along the ocean, but this is where the course is most dangerous. You have to consider the other Gushins and the stage environment whilst also being shot at. This is a fight where you have to be constantly moving to avoid everything, but also keep up with how fast the boss is going. Judging when to spray down can be difficult because of this, and you still want to preserve enough water to hit him when you've managed to get above him. The final phase becomes so cinematic as you rush around the stage, dodging bombs, Gushins, and projectiles, and he will do his best to just keep avoiding all your attacks. This is a standout boss of the game, and the fact that you're interacting with the level you just played makes this stand out even more. Maybe I'm biased, but I absolutely adore when bosses are a part of the stage. Now, there's still one side of the kingdom I haven't mentioned, and that's the beach. Due to this not being a water segment, it's automatically better than the other half of the level. No, but in all seriousness, this has some of my favorite moons. The volleyball minigame is peak. Getting to 100 this time is something I really enjoy. enjoy. Even though it gets really difficult by the end, they're a bit more lenient with how you hit it. And you can also enter 2-player mode and use Cappy for much better controls. The hidden chest room taps into my nostalgia brain. I like this neat tiny platforming section. Getting to Captain Toad is a mission you're supposed to do like this, but going about this the unintended way makes this very fun. That's honestly a big factor as to why I like this beach side. There's a lot of moons here where I know using the Gushen is the intended way, but I like breaking the rules and pulling off way more satisfying tricks. This kingdom offers a lot of that freedom by giving you some really overpowered captures, but also allowing you to complete these moons in different ways. The Koopa freerunning seems super basic the first time, but then you realize you can use the Gushens or the dash flowers, and now there are so many different ways to optimize this race. If the theme alone didn't captivate you, I'm sure all the reasons I've listed should have convinced you that this is a top tier kingdom. Even if you hate water levels like myself, you can't deny this level does a lot to alleviate the boredom that usually comes with it. The captures are a big reason as to why this kingdom is so fun to play through, but things like the moon objectives, amazing boss fights, and player freedom end up getting a water level to the first and only S tier I'll ever give to the theme. This, unlike most kingdoms from Mario Odyssey, feels like a platforming gauntlet. When you come here for the first time, you're ascending up a bunch of small islands till you reach the top. Much like a linear stage, the islands start off small and reasonably simple, but as you go on, each island gets bigger and more complex. And in a way, this kingdom threads the line between both linear and sandbox design. As the final stretch of the game, I deeply appreciate how each section gets harder, with the objectives also becoming more open. The first couple of islands act as an introduction to the more hazardous platforming, as well as the kingdom's main capture, the Pokio. I frickin' love these dudes so much. Firstly, look how cute they are. They are adorable. Secondly, hooking into the wall is such a satisfying mechanic. With motion controls on, you can quickly fling yourself up, but going side to side requires an accurate launch. It can be a bit tough to get used to, but having it only require one button is genius, because the amount of different uses they get out of this is crazy. It's an attack, you can fling yourself on the walls, you can push balls around, you can use it at certain points for puzzle solving. I'd say a lot of the moons later on in the kingdom develop on this capture really well. My favorite being the mission where you have to launch a cannonball into this block. This idea is already taught to you in one of the main objectives, where you have to collect the 5 moon shards. This is the point in the kingdom where each island really starts to open up, and collecting the diverse set of moon shards here showcases some of the more common hiding spots. A lot of moons are off the beaten path, usually on the rooftops or behind the walls. It really gets you into the ninja vibe that this aesthetic sets up, whilst also getting some great use out of the Pokio. The main courtyard has you fighting some harder versions of the Broodals. With Topper, it's pretty easy to see how giving him more hats can make avoiding getting hit even harder. But with Girl Broodal, the increase in difficulty is subtle. Trying to hit back the spike balls when they're to the side of you is a lot more precise. Overall, these are some pretty good midpoint bosses, definitely better than getting another Boom Boom fight for the 50th time. Scaling the last wall is effective in its progression of difficulty. You have to be careful with navigating through the layers of different attacks. I always love trying to get through this part without the Pokio. At least for the first part, that is. Lord knows I wouldn't attempt to do this. But that would also rid me of the enjoyment of using one of my favorite captures. The moving wall requires you to quickly get used to the controls, unless of course you just shake your way up. But once you're done with the gauntlet this kingdom is throwing at you, you're treated with one of the most cinematic looking shots. I haven't mentioned it so far, but the theme of Bowser's Kingdom being based on Japanese architecture instead of the formulaic Bowser's Castle was a stunning new direction. This final shot still achieves the frightening feeling of approaching the final boss, but is way more exciting due to the use of different colors in a breathtaking theme. As for the boss, the despite it not being the final showdown, this is the best boss in the game. I might be biased towards it, as after learning the speedrun strat for this, I can't go back. There's something so satisfying about taking down this behemoth without the needed capture. Killing the first brutal, then using the Pokio to stay on the boss is so smart and creative, but it's the other daunting jumps you have to make that really solidify this boss as one of the more intense challenges. Most of the time I only just clutch my way back onto the boss, but when it's all said and done and you've made these huge maneuvers, there's nothing more satisfying than nailing the final hit. Now, I wanted to be fair and at least consider the normal way of doing this, which I believe is a great implementation of the Pokio. You're pretty much using every application you just learned, with the intensity turned up to 100. You have to poke the cannonballs to destroy the legs, then find the right spots to poke your beak into to climb the boss. The final phase introduces a lot. You have to be quick to avoid it running around, there's more projectiles to avoid, and you're given the option to ascend on the side of the legs without destroying them. I'm sure for anyone who wants to do it that way, it's more than worthy as the final challenge for this world. But for me, I'll always try the Mecha Brutal skip. When this kingdom opens up, that's when you're really given the best moons. These moons tend to further develop on the principles you learned on the first ascent. There's a lot of hidden areas that typically involve using the Pokio. This requires both a watchful eye on where these might be, as most corners and rooftops are hiding things. But there's also a lot of harder challenges using the Pokio. Examples of this include taking notes, where you can't just quickly ascend the wall, poking your beak into the hole, but over a bottomless pit. I know it's silly, but this one kind of reminds me of Studyfall. There's that classic mission of bringing a capture out of its habitat, and like I mentioned before, there's the mission where you have to launch a bomb from really far away. There's also just a bunch of moving wall sections hidden all over the place, so if you weren't challenged by the main wall, these have got you covered. However, most of the really challenging Pokio sections are in the sub areas. But thankfully, the only sub area that counts here is such a cool idea. You have a 2D section that is displayed on this moving screen, with the traditional Japanese art style being so aesthetically pleasing, and the end screen has a creative puzzle to it as well. Funny enough, this one tiny 2D section feels more creative than most of the NSMB levels. The only other sub area I'll mention is this one. To my knowledge, this is the best way to farm coins in Mario Odyssey outside of Luigi's Balloon World, but let me know if you have a better way. With such a large focus being on the Pokio, it's a surprise to find that the rest of the kingdom is still fleshed out with collectibles everywhere. There's all the classic objectives we've seen a lot of, like the timer missions, music notes, small glowing bird, and Koopa free running. These are all pretty solid missions, but the main thing I like about this kingdom is all the nooks and crannies. Platforming around the rooftops and finding all these secret entry points is a joy. It seems like no matter what direction you explore, you're rewarded with something, and if anything looks a bit suspicious, there's probably a puzzle associated with it. This ends up making the kingdom feel like one of the most densely packed kingdoms. I love using Mario's moveset to its fullest and challenging myself with what feels like a jungle gym of platforming. The story missions were already a spectacular build up for the final showdown, but exploring this course still gives you plenty of reason to be excited after everything is done. And that, coupled with one of the most unique and aesthetically pleasing environments, makes this the best rendition of a Bowser's Castle we've ever seen. This is by far the most expansive kingdom in all of Mario Odyssey. No other map is anywhere near as big as this, and the high moon count plus extended storyline was a necessity to flesh this kingdom out. And fittingly, this kingdom feels like an odyssey to complete. I get that a common argument against this kingdom is that it's a bit too barren, and I sorta agree with that point, but I feel like the only times where you really notice it is for the seed missions. I already discussed how I don't like the seed missions, and I think this is the one major blemish in this kingdom, because for the most part you have a lot of tools at your disposal to alleviate this emptiness. There's the power lines to get to higher places, there's Glidon to get to other islands, and once you unlock the Jaxi, getting around is so easy. The major landmark areas will usually have a Jaxi waiting for you, because they know just walking around the desert is kinda boring. And besides, most of the moons are located in these landmark areas, areas, so it's not like you're constantly hopping on the Jaxi over and over again. So in the end, the emptiness of the desert was something I rarely noticed because of this. Additionally, the main path you follow ensures this is never a problem you face. And let me just say, this is the most stacked main progression of any kingdom. Bowser's Kingdom was the ultimate gauntlet of platforming and bosses, but this course might actually be longer. And instead of being a gauntlet of platforming challenges, this includes a huge variety of all sorts of missions, whilst keeping to a low stakes story that continues to give you the motivation to restore this world. In the beginning, the desert is completely frozen over, and whilst this has no impact on you personally, it does restrict you from going to a lot of places, giving you that motivation to complete the story. Initially, this involves getting to the top of this tower. This area alone kind of reminds me of Womp's Fortress. There's the core objective of climbing to the top, and there's one main path to get there. But there's so many secrets hidden at every corner. Using the captures and discovering a lot of the clever hiding spots can have you distracted for ages. Additionally, with everything being so close together, you can use Mario's insane movement to get up this tower however you like. The sheer amount of possibilities here extends to both skilled and inexperienced players. It took me a long time to realize this, but there's a back pathway that leads straight to the tower. You could also just stand where the sand pillars are and get lifted to the top of the platform. This is the main area and central location of the kingdom, so you'd definitely hope there was a lot to do here. And yeah, they absolutely nailed it. Climbing the tower and wrapping around in 2D is a great showcase of how creative these 2D areas are with using their surroundings. Some areas are hidden behind the outside of the tower, and the camera constantly wrapping around makes the level design feel more natural. The next area opens up, and if you know me, I gotta do this section without the platforms. As you'll see later, this kingdom does have a lot of linear sections that allow you to pull off tricks like this. And I gotta say, making up your own challenges in this game is one of the main reasons why I wanted to get Mario Odyssey in the first place. I remember seeing challenges like no captures, no coins, and no jumping, and I love those types of videos. I know this sounds like me just yapping, but I'm explaining this to let you see into my mind a bit. People might have totally logical reasons on why certain levels suck because of how they experienced it, but for me, the things I value are way different. Areas that might seem pretty mundane can end up being some of my favorite sections due to the creativity of approaching it a different way. I don't feel this way with all the games in this video. Mario Odyssey is pretty much the only game I love to dissect and approach in really weird ways. So what I'm saying is, I have an extreme bias to this game, but we all have weird things that we like and can't really describe why. So let's not get too judgmental about our disagreements. The next section introduces us to another great capture idea, this time being a completely new enemy. Personally, I like sparing this dude and just going off memory. Overall, this is a cool capture idea, but this is the only area in the main kingdom where we get to use him. He does get expanded on in some sub areas, but unfortunately we won't be including that. So for this video, it is a shame that this is the best exploration of this idea, because it still leaves a lot to be desired. The inverted pyramid is a big test of a lot of the skills you've just learned, whether that's utilizing the bullet bills or purposely skipping them as much as possible. The 2D sections come back, but now with a gravity twist. I like how this is essentially the same idea as Right Side Down Galaxy, with the bullet bills acting as threatening obstacles, but then coupling as tools for you to break down the walls and cross gaps. Mario Odyssey as a whole does a great job with the dual purpose of enemies. This area has one of my favorite secrets in the game. I can't really describe why this appeals to me so much, but to me, it's one of the standout hiding spots in the entire game. So I just mentioned how the girl Broodal was changed in Bowser's Kingdom, and that subtle change makes all the difference. Without it, this ends up being the weakest Broodal due to how easy her attacks are to combat. Technically, Spew It is easier to beat, but I find the fight way more interesting than just throwing your hat forward. So after all is said and done, that would be be a very fulfilling main progression. The only thing is, we're just getting started. Raising the pyramid causes the desert to become even colder, and then a bunch of zombies rise from the ground. This leads us to a really fun obstacle course in the ice caverns. It feels similar to the inverted pyramid, as the bullet bills are still the main focus, but this time you're taught to navigate between a lot of obstacles. That's because this is one of the core components of beating the boss. If you thought the last boss was underwhelming, then this completely makes up for it. The idea of having the enemy act as both the danger, but the only solution, is a great risk and reward mechanic, as you have to bait the hands into smashing the ice chunks, whilst not getting too close. Then you take that knowledge of using the bullet bills to avoid obstacles into this fight, and put it to the ultimate test. The third phase especially tests your reaction time to skillfully maneuver around its ice attacks. Honestly, this is a top 3 fight in the entire game, and I love this risk and reward mechanic. Using everything you've learnt from the bullet bills and putting it to the ultimate test is so satisfying. You throw in some additional attacks, and for an early game boss, this is one of the more difficult fights. Okay, that was a lot to get through, and so far we've only talked about the main progression of this level. I won't go into as much detail about everything else, but it's crazy that this kingdom is still packed with so much more. This kingdom introduces the Cooper walking minigame, and this is a good introduction as you can use the plantation to figure out where you're going wrong. Another minigame that's introduced here is sheep herding. This is another fun one, if a bit too simple at times, but very fitting for this open layout. I'd say for the most part, this is a kingdom where the additional moons are hidden rather than puzzles. For each of the main areas, there's a plethora of hiding spots. Some of my favorites include in the quicksand, on top of the archway, becoming the cactus, employees only, the underground treasure chest, island on the poison swamp. Additionally, there's lots of hiding spots that don't feature any moons, but rather stash a huge collection of coins. This is mostly in the linear sections, but it's cool to see that Nintendo are aware of these out of bounds areas and don't block them off. So maybe I lied about there not being that many puzzle moons. There are some really clever things here. Breaking the block on this pillar seems impossible, because getting the bullet bill far enough just doesn't work. I won't spoil the solution, but it's a great test of skill and puzzle solving. Reuniting the Jaxi in the right spot is a fun puzzle, and finding a way to the cage is a simple but effective puzzle. So there's not too many puzzle moons, but the ones here are still very memorable. I think this kingdom's main storyline is the part that carries it into legendary status, because when listing off all the individual moons, there's a lot that just end up filling out empty space. But that's all they really needed to do. There's already a bunch of really great mechanics here, so just getting to explore them in different contexts really fleshes this kingdom out. The desert, whilst housing a lot of empty space, has enough content to fill it out. Many of the main destinations have easy ways to be accessed, as well as just being fun to navigate in themselves. But in the end, none of this matters, as this is the only kingdom where you can become a cactus. So that's an easy S tier. Choosing between this and the top spot was really difficult. This kingdom is probably more jam-packed with content and realistically does more interesting things with its world. But ultimately, second place is gonna have to go to the Wooded Kingdom. Much like the last kingdom, the main progression of this world is so stacked. Then on top of that, the way every area overlaps with each other is overwhelming in the best way. At the start of the level, you can explore this lush forest, and whilst there's not too many moons here, there's a lot of different directions you can go. You can scour the edge of the map and wrap around to this area, or you could climb the waterfall to get there. You can also go this way to find a secret tunnel to the main area, or you could have just gone the normal way. As someone who doesn't like doing things the normal way, this kingdom offers a lot of freedom in that regard. It almost seems like everything is set up so that you can make these skips. Like jumping across here is just the right distance. It makes me think this was intentional. This whole kingdom has a heavy emphasis on platforming. That's mostly due to this kingdom's main capture, the uproot. This dude's definitely not my favorite capture, but I think its presence actually improves my opinion on this kingdom. because I like getting a lot of the intended uproot moons without it. It makes this kingdom, which is already stacked with some fun platforming segments from Mario, even better. Challenging myself to get the nut moons without the uproot is all sorts of fun with this game's limitless movement. Because of how compact the platforming segments are, there's a lot of opportunities to make your own fun. That's an overall strength of Mario Odyssey, but this world's level design has so many moments where you can take advantage of that. One section that implements this idea flawlessly is the destructible wall. You're given a tank to destroy parts of the wall, to then reveal this path up to the top. But you're not actually required to destroy it all. You can just break off the parts you see fit, and ironically, this conveys how you can still find a way up without using the blocks laid out for you. And then, wouldn't you look at it, just around the corner is this linear platforming section that has an intended path set up right near the wall. But if you go around the side, you can skip some or all of the course by doing a risky jump. And I guess you could argue it trivializes the actual fun path, but I find making leaps of faith like this even more rewarding. Another really strong aspect of this kingdom are the nooks and crannies. It just seems like the hiding spots here are so reasonable, yet I always end up missing stuff. Every corner has another path to find. Every section will have a platform hidden from the main path. Moons will be hidden in plain sight, but get you asking, how the hell do I get there? And in some of these cases, there will be multiple answers. This kingdom already has all sorts of neat hiding spots with its moons, but the purple coins expand on that with some spots that will make any completionist satisfied. Even though the space of this kingdom is well occupied with hidden moons, there's your usual challenge moons here to make this one of the most packed kingdoms. There's the timer challenges, which in theme with the kingdom involve ascending through an obstacle course. There's bunny chasing, but in an accurate location. Goomba love simulation, taking a capture to the other side of the map. Music notes, but this one might genuinely be the hardest one in the game. This Goomba stacking boss. I don't think I've mentioned this one, but it has appeared in other places. Anyways, this is a sick boss that I actually think is better than the initial boss that takes place here. Don't get me wrong, Spewit was a boss I struggled at a lot when I first played this game. The problem with it now is that it can be cheesed so easily, and it makes this fight way too easy. It's kinda like the same problem with the Koopalings. Once you figure out how to beat them, you can't really go back. The other boss of this world is also pretty disappointing. With this one, I didn't even struggle with it on my first playthrough, as it's as simple as just walking around in a circle pressing B in the center of the blocks. Even its attacks are easy, cause it gives you way too much time to dodge. The harder version in the Mushroom Kingdom sorta solves this, but not enough to make it good. Overall, I just feel like this capture doesn't lend itself to any compelling boss fights. Which is weird, cause all the best kingdoms do this really well, but usually the other captures have more than one use. But unfortunately, this capture is too simple in its design. But the fact that this kingdom only has disappointing bosses and still made it to second place, I hope showcases how much admiration I have for the level design here. If you ignore the bosses, this kingdom is still jam-packed with countless areas to explore, and the fantastic music gives off the right energy for this course. A whimsical, exciting adventure. The bright red and green clashing next to a lush forest fits the environment, and I can't help but smile the whole time I'm playing this. That is until the deep woods. This is the most terrifying area in a Mario game. I love the deep, moody fog of this area, and how you can hear the faint footsteps of a giant beast. The soundscape of the environment with no backing music adds to the dread and anxiety of this area. You could argue the older games had some scary enemies that are universally seen as childhood trauma, but I would argue kids these days have it way worse, cause I'm an adult and I'm genuinely getting so nervous in this area. But don't worry, all that anxiety is balanced out because you can become a tree. In all honesty, the moons down here are pretty good for the most part. I think some of the more boring ones, like breaking a rock, can be transformed into a more captivating mission due to how nerve-wracking it is to mess around down here. The difficulty of the timer challenge comes from investigating where it is, which is pretty unique compared to most timer challenges. this. I used to think this pipe minigame was RNG, but someone told me the key to figuring it out, and now I just like this one for how subtle the answer is. There's even a moon that requires you getting the T-Rex to break these blocks. Thankfully, I know a way to knock them out, but the wiki says to just lure it, and I can't even imagine how anxiety-inducing that would be. However, there's one moon that's even worse than that. You have to find this coin dude and spend 500 coins as you deposit them into this plant. This is a shocking moon that not only wastes your money, but disrespects your time. Overall though, this doesn't sour my opinion on this kingdom. It's a tiny blip in an otherwise outstanding kingdom that combines all my favorite things about Mario Odyssey and excels at them. The contrast between expressive platforming and stealthy gameplay works within this setting. Even though the bosses don't connect with me, everything else about this kingdom does. So anytime I come back to this kingdom, it's an absolute joy to collect everything all over again.
John, we just got a letter from Curbline. What does it say? It asks, what's your favorite sandbox area in the Mario games? Oh, can you return something to him for me? Sure. Oh. Anyway, my favorite 3D sandbox area in the Mario games has to be the Wooded Kingdom from Mario Odyssey. I'm a sucker for any type of trees in video games, but the overgrowth spreading onto and taking over the technology gives the area a whole distant post-apocalyptic vibe that I absolutely love. This place is all about that contrast. It's a mixture of relaxing scenery and brutally hard platforming, a mixture of high reaches and deep undergrounds, a mixture of crazy awesome music that goes hard at every turn, getting you hyped up for the next level, and strangely anxious watering can robots who question their mortality. It's not that deep, man. The variety of enemies that you can fight and capture in this area, mixed with the astounding amount of creative platforming, makes this one of my favorite areas to re-explore as time goes on. I love the Wooded Kingdom, and while I'd never make an argument that it's the best, it's still my favorite.
So, if you've been following along, you know what the final Mario Odyssey level is. I have no idea how controversial I've been so far, you'll have to let me know, but I would say this final take is not a popular one. For the greatest level, I wouldn't say this does anything revolutionary. Out of every aspect that makes a level great, another stage has done it better than this one. But when I consider this kingdom for the sum of its parts, it really is the perfect kingdom for me. So without further ado, the peak Mario Sandbox level is the Lost Kingdom. This is one of the smaller kingdoms in Mario Odyssey, with a total of 35 moons. But out of the moons we get, there is not a single bad one here. I enjoy every aspect of this kingdom, but if you know me through watching this video, you'll know the main reason why I love this level is the player freedom it offers. Every moon has multiple different solutions if you're creative enough. You can use the main capture of this kingdom for a lot of the moons, and I wouldn't blame you. This dude is sick. Stretching out over dangerous poisoned waters to grab some out of place collectibles is fun. But what if we were to just not use this dude? You can get almost every moon in this kingdom without him. It starts off simple with moons like this one. You can clearly see how you're supposed to use these ground pound blocks to navigate the stretchy dude to the top, but it's totally in reach to just jump up there. There's a spot under this bridge where you're supposed to stretch out to it, but you can just jump for it and get it before you die. This whole section is reliant on the stretchy boy, but I have so much fun trying to navigate between each platform without it. Doing this the normal way is still a blast, but I just love that there are so many options in this kingdom. This makes platforming between objectives all the more fun, as there's so many unique ways of getting around. This skip is especially fun, and it creates a bridge between these two areas that would normally be quite far apart. But at the same time, this kingdom's scope ensures everything is densely packed, and so it doesn't take that long to get from one side to the other. There are a couple moons that are just laying around, and you'd think for only 35 moons that this is wasting the area. But instead, it gives this small region no downtime. And like I mentioned with Snowman's Land, the easy to complete missions don't really subtract from the overall quality of the stage, as there's still plenty of good hiding spots here. I like the one in the stone cage, the one hiding behind the stone pillar, the one in the side of the cliff, there's one in a far off island, and Captain Toad wasn't messing around this time. He found the best hiding spot, which mind you is a spot that has multiple ways of getting to. I think even if you interact with everything the intended way, there's still a lot to get out of here. When you first come to the kingdom, you lose Cappy for a bit and you realize how much he adds to the movement. I do wish this section lasted a bit longer, as it's a unique challenge that some of the sub areas capitalize on, but to have a more open kingdom with this design is really interesting for the brief period it occurs. And the level design does a great job of getting you to interact with the ground pound blocks, then having to time it to hit the vulture. I didn't mention this segment before because there's a way you can skip all this, and I don't know what to say. I just enjoy doing this a lot more. But I'm not always trying to break the intended experience. There are other parts of the kingdom that have one solution to them that I still really enjoy, like breaking the cage or stone bricks, which is a really creative use of the other enemy in this kingdom. There's also the bring the capture to me mission, and this gets you interacting with the ground pound blocks in a clever way. I really like the 2D section of this level. It's very interesting how the fuzzies phase in and out of the wall. Once again, this shows how valuable Cappy is, because anytime you try to pull off anything impressive in the 2D section, you just die immediately. The Koopa free running takes the perfect route for this bite-sized course. You just gotta get to the top as quick as possible. No matter which route you take, this is fun the whole way up. And I always enjoy trying to take new paths to the top. Ultimately, this skip has to be the fastest route, but just trying out all sorts of movement is a joy. So ultimately, it's the player freedom that does it for me. Being able to check off so many moons really quickly is always satisfying, and when no moon gets me anywhere near frustrated, I can only see this as a joy the whole way through. Out of all 35 moons, the Sphinx mission is the only one I'd consider boring, so that's still pretty high praise. Then on top of that, the atmosphere plays a huge role in my enjoyment of this kingdom. Despite it not being as whimsical as other places, the use of dark, moody colors contrasts nicely with the beautiful Poison Lake. Maybe I'm biased to this course because I've spent so much time here, but the music is so fitting for the level and is an absolute vibe. So for all the simple fun this level has given me, I'd have to award it with being the best of the best. And that is the end of Mario Odyssey's dominating run. I knew from the start this game was going to trump everything else. This was my favorite game of all time up until Tears of the Kingdom released, so it's fair to say I had a bit of a bias going into this video. But I replayed all these levels twice for this ranking, mostly because I accidentally recorded everything in 30 FPS, but in replaying everything, my rankings changed significantly, and I truly think I gave the fairest ranking I could, based on my own values that is. Ultimately, Super Mario Odyssey ends with an average rank of 17 out of 65, giving it the only S tier rank. If you're curious on what the ranks are related to, I'm just making it up based on vibes. I had a system for it initially, and then that just didn't make much sense, so it's all just vibes now. Now, somehow, there's still one YouTuber left to talk about this level, which reaffirms I'm not crazy in thinking this is the best level.
Hey everyone! I'm Albert Boris. The Lost Kingdom. To be honest, there are very few Mario levels that have as little problems as this one does. I've always been a huge fan of nature themes in Mario games, and this one especially puts a unique twist to it, because it feels so desolate and yet still so full of life as well, with the variety of enemies, an odd choice of colors, and it's also a perfect example of a level where even though it's on the smaller side, it's not to a point that there's nothing to do. No, there is still plenty of platforming, and coupled in with the fact that the Red Sea and Purple Skies reminded me of another childhood game, King's Quest II, and you have a level that will always have a special place in my heart.
So finally, here's the tier list of all 3D Sandbox levels. I think it's pretty evenly spread overall, but I have to reiterate that a C tier Mario level is better than most 3D platformer levels get to, and even a D tier level is still fun. It's more that it's disappointing compared to the genius I've seen from this series. Now, whilst I go over the outro, I'm going to showcase some weird awards I made up to take advantage of this tier list I finished. So if your favorite favorite level didn't do that well, maybe it'll get one of these awards. I'm gonna link the tier list in the description, but just note I made this one a while ago, because I planned on doing a video where I rank every 3D Mario level, so you'll have to sort through a bunch of linear levels in this tier list. I also didn't realize TierMaker orders the photos in alphabetical order, so it's a freaking mishmash of levels in alphabetical order. But good luck sorting through it, I believe in you. Maybe someday I'll do all the linear levels as well, but I guess you'll just have to subscribe to find out. I want to say a big thank you to all the YouTubers who helped out with this ranking. There were definitely some huge inspirations of mine in this video. So if you liked this video, please go check out the people I steal my ideas from. And if you have any other smaller YouTubers I might have missed, not including in the video, just let me know in the comments, cause I'd love to find more. And if I ever get round to doing a linear level ranking, then I would love to feature more impressive YouTubers. Anyways, thank you to everyone who's made it this far. This video was insanely long, so thank you for your patience.